She was worth $3 billion, and she'd been waiting in a rundown cafe for 57 minutes on Christmas Eve for a man who might never show up. Evelyn Hart didn't wait for anyone. Not board members, not investors, not even her ex-husband when their marriage crumbled. But tonight, watching pitying glances from strangers turn to open stares of concern, she sat perfectly still in a cracked vinyl booth, her designer coat drawing curious eyes in this forgotten corner of the city. When the door finally crashed open and a snow-covered stranger stumbled through, apologizing before he even saw her, clearly broke, clearly desperate, clearly not the polished professional she'd been promised, every instinct screamed at her to leave. Instead, she smiled, because something in his exhausted eyes told her this was the first honest moment she'd encountered in years, and walking away would cost her more than staying ever could. If you want to know how a woman who built empires learned to wait, and how a man who'd lost everything taught her what wealth really means, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. I want to see how far this story travels tonight. The snow had started 3 hours ago, transforming Chicago's financial district into something almost magical, softening the brutal edges of steel and glass with white silence. Evelyn Hart watched it from the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office on the 42nd floor, her reflection ghostly against the darkening sky. Below, tiny figures hurried through the streets, rushing toward warm homes and waiting families. Christmas Eve, the loneliest night of the year when you had everything except someone to share it with. "Ms. Hart?" Her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your car's waiting downstairs, and I've emailed you the information about tonight's arrangement." Arrangement. Such a clinical word for what amounted to hiring someone to prevent her from spending another holiday completely alone. Evelyn closed her eyes briefly, remembering last Christmas. Take-out Chinese food eaten at her desk while reviewing quarterly projections, the silence of her penthouse apartment so complete it felt like drowning. "Thank you, Jessica. Merry Christmas. Go home to your family. Are you sure you don't want me to confirm the reservation at Alinea? I could still, I'm sure. Enjoy your evening." Evelyn disconnected before her assistant could protest further. The reservation at one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants had been Jessica's idea, a way to make the evening feel less pathetic. But Evelyn had canceled it this morning. If she was going to meet someone through a professional companionship service, God, even thinking the words made her want to laugh or cry, she couldn't decide which. She wasn't going to do it somewhere that screamed desperation and excess. She'd chosen a place called Rosie's Cafe instead, a small neighborhood spot she'd discovered years ago when her driver got lost taking an alternate route. She'd stopped in once for coffee, charmed by its worn authenticity, and never forgotten it. The kind of place where people actually talk to each other instead of staring at their phones. The kind of place that felt real. Her phone buzzed with Jessica's email. Evelyn opened it reluctantly. Name, Marcus Thompson. Age, 38. Profession, financial consultant. Background, MBA from Northwestern, divorced, no children. Interests include classical music, fine dining, international travel. The profile went on, each perfectly curated detail, making Evelyn feel more hollow. This was what her life had become, reviewing specifications for human companionship the way she'd review a merger proposal. Marcus Thompson would be handsome, she was certain, polished. He'd know exactly what to say, how to make her feel interesting and valued for exactly the number of hours she'd paid for. The thought made her stomach turn. But the alternative, another Christmas alone, another year of pretending she hadn't sacrificed every meaningful relationship to build her empire, felt worse. Evelyn gathered her things slowly. Her office was immaculate as always, everything in its place, from the awards lining the shelves to the minimalist art on the walls. She'd built Hart Equity Group from nothing, turned a small inheritance into a financial powerhouse that managed portfolios worth billions. Forbes had called her the woman with the Midas touch. Business Insider had featured her in their 40 Under 40 3 years running. None of them mentioned that she went home to an empty apartment every night. None of them captured the way success tasted like ashes when you had no one to celebrate it with. The elevator ride down was smooth and silent. Her building manager wished her a Merry Christmas. The security guard did the same. Her driver, Michael, was waiting at the curb with the car door already open. "Rosie's Cafe, ma'am?" "Yes, thank you, Michael." That's quite a trek from here. Neighborhood's a bit rough this time of night. I know. She settled into the leather seat, watching the financial district give way to older neighborhoods. The gleaming towers replaced by brick buildings and corner stores, their windows glowing with colored lights. This was the Chicago tourists didn't see, the working-class heart of the city, where people lived in small apartments and knew their neighbors' names. Her phone buzzed again. A text from her ex-husband, Richard. "Merry Christmas, Ev. Hope you're well." She stared at the message, trying to remember when they'd stopped being Richard and Evelyn and become Ev and Rich, diminished versions of themselves. Their divorce had been finalized 8 months ago, amicable and efficient as everything else in her life. No children to fight over, no real assets to split. Richard had made excellent money as a surgeon, but it was nothing compared to her wealth. They'd simply ended. Like a business contract neither party wanted to renew. "Merry Christmas," she typed back. Nothing more. Rosie's Cafe appeared through the snow like something from another era. The neon sign flickered. Rosie's, half the letters dim with age. Through the fogged windows, Evelyn could see perhaps a dozen people inside. The interior warm and golden, strings of Christmas lights draped haphazardly around the windows. "Ma'am, are you certain? I'll text when I'm ready to leave. Take the evening off, Michael. Be with your family. But, please, Merry Christmas." She stepped out before he could argue further, the cold hitting her like a physical force. Her Burberry coat, which had seemed perfectly adequate in her climate-controlled office building, felt paper-thin against the wind. She hurried toward the cafe, her heels clicking on the icy sidewalk, completely impractical for these conditions. The door stuck when she tried to open it, swollen with age and weather. She had to push hard, stumbling slightly as it gave way. A bell jangled above her head, loud and cheerful, announcing her entrance to every person inside. Conversations paused. Heads turned. Evelyn felt herself being assessed. Her coat, her shoes, her carefully styled hair. She didn't belong here. It was written on every face, in every curious stare. "Sit anywhere, honey," a woman called from behind the counter. She was perhaps 60, with kind eyes and flour dusting her apron. "Merry Christmas." "Thank you. Merry Christmas." Evelyn chose a booth near the back, sliding onto cracked vinyl that had been repaired with duct tape. The table was clean but scarred with decades of use, the laminate surface worn through in places. A small plastic Christmas tree sat on the counter, decorated with handmade ornaments that looked like they'd been contributed by customers over the years. It was perfect, real, nothing like the sterile elegance of Alinea. She checked her watch. 7:25, says Marcus Thompson was supposed to arrive at 7:30. She ordered coffee from the kind woman, Rosie, presumably, who brought it in a chipped ceramic mug that somehow made it taste better than the expensive espresso from her office's Italian machine. 7:30 came and went. Evelyn told herself to be patient. Christmas Eve traffic was terrible. The snow was getting worse. By 7:45, she was checking her phone obsessively. No messages, no missed calls. By 8 o'clock, the pitying glances had started. The couple in the next booth kept looking over, whispering to each other. Rosie had refilled her coffee twice, each time lingering a little longer, concern growing in her eyes. "You okay, honey? Can I get you something to eat?" "I'm waiting for someone. He should be here soon." But 8:15 passed, then 8:30. Evelyn felt her face growing hot with humiliation. This was worse than spending Christmas alone. This was being stood up in front of strangers, being the object of their pity. She could practically hear their thoughts. "Look at that poor woman, all dressed up and nowhere to go. Probably a bad date. Probably been here almost an hour. She should leave. She absolutely should leave." She'd finish her coffee, drop enough cash on the table to cover a week's worth of coffee, and go home to her penthouse where at least her humiliation would be private. But something kept her in the booth, some stubborn part of her that had waited this long and refused to give up. That or pure masochistic pride. She couldn't quite tell which. At 8:47, when she'd been sitting alone for an hour and 17 minutes and was finally reaching for her purse, the door crashed open with such force that the bell above it practically flew off its mounting. A man stumbled in, snow covering his shoulders and hair, his breath coming in gasps like he'd been running. He wore a thin jacket that was clearly inadequate for the weather, jeans with wet patches at the knees, and work boots that tracked slush across Rosie's clean floor. "I'm so sorry," he said to no one in particular, looking around the cafe desperately. "I'm so sorry. I know I'm late. His eyes found Evelyn. He froze. This was not Marcus Thompson, financial consultant with an MBA from Northwestern. This man looked like he'd been through a war, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. He was perhaps 35, with dark hair plastered to his forehead, 5 o'clock shadow verging on a beard, and eyes that held the particular weariness of someone who'd been struggling for so long that struggle had become their natural state. He was also, despite everything, beautiful in a way that made Evelyn's breath catch. Not polished beautiful, not magazine beautiful, real beautiful, the kind that came from character etched into every feature. "Evelyn?" he said hesitantly. "Evelyn Hart?" She should have said no, should have said he had the wrong person, should have let him go find whoever he was actually supposed to meet. Instead, she smiled. "You made it." The relief that washed over his face was so profound it was almost painful to witness. He crossed to her booth quickly, sliding in across from her, bringing the smell of snow and cold and something indefinably masculine with him. "I am so sorry," he said again. His voice was deeper than she'd expected, roughened by cold or emotion or both. "My daughter, she got sick this afternoon, and the neighbor who usually watches her couldn't come. And I tried to call, but my phone died, and then the bus was late because of the snow, and I almost didn't come at all, but I thought... He stopped, seeming to actually see her for the first time. His eyes widened slightly, traveling over her face, her expensive coat, her designer handbag sitting on the booth beside her. "Oh, God," he said quietly. "You're way out of my league. I should go." "Don't." The word came out more sharply than she'd intended. Evelyn softened her voice. "Please don't. You're here now. Stay." He studied her face for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. "You waited. You actually waited." "I did. Most people would have left after 10 minutes. I'm not most people." She wasn't sure if that was true anymore, but she wanted it to be. He laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "No, I don't think you are." He stuck out his hand across the table. "Lucas Reed, and I'm still really, really sorry." His hand was calloused, warm despite the cold outside, and his grip was firm, honest. "Evelyn Hart, and you already apologized, at least 4 times. I wasn't counting, but you're probably right." He ran his other hand through his wet hair, making it stick up in odd directions. "God, I must look like I got hit by a truck. I didn't even have time to change after work." "Where do you work?" Something flickered across his face. Shame, maybe, or defensiveness. "Construction, framing crew. It's not exactly glamorous." "Neither is what I do when you get down to it. I move money around and tell people where to invest it. At least you build things people can actually use." He studied her again, and Evelyn had the unsettling sensation of being truly seen, maybe for the first time in years. Not assessed for her net worth or her utility, just seen. "That's an interesting way to describe being a billionaire," he said quietly. Evelyn felt her spine stiffen defensively before she could stop herself. "How did you—" "I Googled you. After the service matched us. Wanted to know what I was getting into." He smiled, but there was no mockery in it. "Almost canceled. Figured there was no way this was real. No way someone like you would actually show up to meet someone like me. Thought maybe it was some kind of elaborate prank. But you came anyway." "I came anyway." His smile faded. "Can I ask you something?" "Why? Why use a service like this? You could have anyone you wanted. You could probably buy—" He stopped, shaking his head. "Sorry, that came out wrong. I just mean, I understand why I'm here. I'm broke, I'm alone, I haven't had an adult conversation that wasn't with my boss or my daughter in 6 months. But you? You don't need to pay for companionship." The bluntness should have offended her. Instead, it felt like relief. Someone finally being honest instead of careful. "You'd be surprised," Evelyn said quietly. "Money doesn't buy the things that matter. It just makes you better at pretending you don't need them. Rosie appeared at their table, saving Evelyn from having to elaborate. Well, well, glad your friend finally made it, honey. What can I get you to? Lucas glanced at Evelyn, then at the menu card tucked behind the napkin dispenser. She saw him doing calculations in his head, probably trying to figure out what he could afford. 2 coffees, Evelyn said, and whatever your best pie is, 2 slices. Apple crumb. Made it fresh this afternoon. You got it. When Rosie left, Lucas was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You didn't have to do that. Do what? Order for both of us. Act like this is, I don't know, a real date instead of what it actually is. And what is it actually? I don't know, he admitted. I've never done this before. Have you? First time. So we're both winging it. He smiled again, and Evelyn felt something in her chest loosen slightly. Okay then, want to start over? Pretend I showed up on time and didn't look like a drowned rat? I kind of like the drowned rat look. It's honest. Honest. He seemed to taste the word. Yeah, I can do honest. That's probably all I have to offer anyway. Rosie brought their coffee and pie, the slices enormous and still warm, vanilla ice cream melting over the golden crust. The smell alone was better than anything Evelyn had eaten at Alinea. They ate in silence for a moment, and Evelyn was surprised to find it wasn't awkward. Comfortable, actually, like they'd done this 100 times before. Your daughter, she said finally. Is she okay? Lucas's entire face changed when she mentioned his daughter, softening, filling with a love so pure it was almost painful to witness. Yeah, just a cold. But Mia's had a rough year and I worry every time she sniffles. Probably overreacting, but he shrugged. She's 7. She's everything. No partner to help? Widower. 3 years now. He said it matter-of-factly, but Evelyn could hear the weight behind the words. Cancer. It was fast. 6 months from diagnosis to, yeah. I'm sorry. Thank you. It's getting easier, but some days... He stopped, shook his head. Sorry, that's probably not what you signed up to hear about. I asked. You did. He took a sip of coffee, studying her over the rim of his cup. Your turn. Why is a billionaire spending Christmas Eve with a stranger in a cafe that probably hasn't been renovated since 1987? Because everywhere else felt fake, Evelyn heard herself say. Because I'm tired of pretending I'm fine with being alone. Because I'm 42 years old and I just spent an hour waiting for someone who might not show up. And the waiting felt more real than anything else I've done in months. The words hung between them, more honest than she'd intended to be. Lucas didn't look away or try to fill the silence with platitudes. I get that, he said finally. The real thing. I work with my hands all day, building things, and it's the only time I feel like myself anymore. Everything else is just going through the motions, trying to be strong for Mia, pretending I'm not one emergency away from losing everything. What did you do? Before? His jaw tightened slightly. Architecture. I was an architect. Had my own practice, actually. Small, but growing. Did custom residential design, mostly. Houses that fit people's lives instead of the other way around. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That was before. Now I frame other people's designs and try not to think about what I gave up. Why did you give it up? Medical bills. Kelly's treatment wasn't all covered by insurance. We lost the house, the practice, everything. I needed steady income, not the feast or famine cycle of running your own firm. So I took the first job I could get that offered benefits and regular hours. He shrugged. Turns out, I'm pretty good at swinging a hammer. Not fulfilling, but it pays the bills. Mostly. Evelyn thought about her own trajectory. Business school, the aggressive climb up the corporate ladder, the decision to strike out on her own. She'd never had to choose between her dreams and survival. She'd had the luxury of pursuing both. Do you ever think about going back to it? Every day. The words came out raw. But Mia needs stability more than she needs a dad who's chasing dreams. Maybe when she's older, when we're more secure. But right now. He shook his head. Right now I show up, do the work, and try not to think too hard about what I'm missing. They finished their pie in thoughtful silence. Around them, the cafe was emptying as people headed home to their Christmas Eve celebrations. Rosie was wiping down tables, humming along to the jazz version of Silent Night, playing from somewhere behind the counter. "I should probably go," Lucas said, but he didn't move. "Let you get on with your evening. I'm sure you have plans." "I don't." "Really? No fancy party or charity gala or whatever billionaires do on Christmas Eve?" "I canceled them all. Couldn't face another night of small talk and artificial cheer." Evelyn surprised herself by continuing. "My ex-husband texted earlier, wishing me Merry Christmas. We were married for 8 years, and now we're people who send polite text messages on holidays." "What happened?" "Nothing dramatic. No affair, no big fight. We just drifted. I was always working. He was always at the hospital. We were two very successful, very busy people sharing an address and pretending it was enough." She traced the rim of her coffee cup. "When he asked for the divorce, my first thought was finally. My second thought was, what now? And what did you figure out? That success isn't enough. That being good at making money doesn't make you good at making a life. That I built an empire and forgot to build anything else." Lucas was quiet for a long moment. "I think I did the opposite. I built everything around one person, and when she died, it all collapsed. Different mistakes, same loneliness." The honesty was startling. Evelyn was used to people wanting things from her, investments, connections, opportunities. Lucas wasn't asking for anything. He was just there, present in a way that felt profound. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "And you can tell me it's none of my business. Why did you sign up for the service? What made you decide tonight was the night to spend with a stranger?" He looked down at his empty plate, his jaw working. "Because Mia asked me when I was going to find someone to make me happy again. She's 7 years old and she's worried about me being lonely. That's not, kids shouldn't have to worry about their parents like that." "She sounds special." "She's everything," he said again, and the simple truth of it made Evelyn's chest ache. "Which is why I'm going to say something that might sound crazy." "I'm listening." Lucas met her eyes directly. "Come home with me." "Not like that." "God, not like that." "But Mia's awake. She was watching a movie when I left, and the neighbor's with her, but she's going to want to know how tonight went. And I think I'd like you to meet her. If that's completely insane, tell me, and I'll shut up and we can finish our coffee and go our separate ways." Every logical part of Evelyn's brain screamed warnings. She'd known this man for less than an hour. She had no idea where he lived or what his situation really was. This violated every safety protocol, every boundary she'd carefully constructed. But somewhere beneath the logic was something else, a whisper that said this was exactly what she'd been waiting for. Not a polished evening with a hired companion, not another night of careful distance and emotional safety. Something real, something that mattered. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Okay?" "Yes. I'd like to meet Mia." The smile that broke across Lucas's face was like sunrise. "Really? You're serious?" "I'm serious. I should warn you, my apartment is about 600 square feet. Everything's secondhand. The heat barely works. It's nothing like what you're used to." "Good," Evelyn said. "I'm tired of what I'm used to." They paid, Lucas insisting on splitting it despite Evelyn's protests, counting out crumpled bills with careful precision, and headed back into the snow. The temperature had dropped further, and Evelyn's coat was completely inadequate. She was shivering within seconds. Lucas noticed immediately. "Here." He shrugged out of his thin jacket and draped it over her shoulders before she could protest. "I'm used to the cold. Work outside all day." "You'll freeze." "I'll survive. Bus stop's just a block away." They walked through snow-covered streets, past houses with Christmas lights twinkling in windows, past families visible inside warm rooms. Evelyn couldn't remember the last time she'd walked anywhere in Chicago without a car waiting. The cold was brutal, but there was something clarifying about it, something that made everything feel immediate and urgent and real. "So," Lucas said as they waited at the bus stop, his breath visible in the frigid air, "what are you thinking right now?" "Because I'm thinking I basically kidnapped a billionaire on Christmas Eve, and this might be the weirdest night of my life." Evelyn laughed, surprised by how genuine it sounded. I'm thinking this is either the best decision I've made in years or the worst. But either way, at least it's interesting. Setting the bar pretty low there. You'd be surprised how rare interesting actually is. The bus arrived, nearly empty, just a few other passengers looking tired and ready for Christmas to be over. Lucas paid both their fares despite Evelyn's protest, and they found seats near the back, the vinyl cold through her expensive slacks. "Tell me about Mia," Evelyn said as the bus lurched into motion. "What's she like?" Lucas's whole face transformed again, that pure paternal love radiating from him. "She's fierce, funny, way smarter than I was at 7. She reads at a 5th grade level and has opinions about everything. Wants to be either an astronaut or a veterinarian, changes her mind every other week." He pulled out his phone, showing Evelyn the lock screen, a little girl with dark curls and Lucas's eyes, grinning gap-toothed at the camera. That's from her last birthday. She insisted on a space-themed party, even though none of her friends were into it. Spent the whole time explaining planetary orbits to confused first graders. She's beautiful. She's bossy and stubborn and asks about 400 questions a day, and I wouldn't change a single thing about her. He slipped the phone back in his pocket. "Fair warning, she's probably going to interrogate you. She has very strong opinions about who I should be spending time with." Should I be nervous? Terrified. But he was smiling. She once made a woman cry by asking why she laughed like a cartoon villain. Jesus. Yeah, Mia doesn't do fake. She's got Kelly's honesty, for better or worse. If she doesn't like you, you'll know immediately. But if she does, he trailed off. If she does, you might be stuck with us. The bus jolted over a pothole, and Evelyn found herself sliding slightly toward Lucas on the worn vinyl seat. He steadied her automatically, his hand on her elbow, and didn't immediately pull away. The touch was casual, friendly, completely appropriate. And it sent a shock through her system that had nothing to do with the cold. When had someone last touched her without agenda, without wanting something? "This is us," Lucas said as the bus squealed to a stop. They stepped out into a neighborhood that was worlds away from Evelyn's penthouse district. Older buildings, some renovated, some clearly struggling. A bodega on the corner with bars on the windows. A small park across the street where snow-covered playground equipment. "Welcome to my kingdom," Lucas said with self-deprecating humor. "Sorry there's no doorman." They climbed 3 flights of stairs in a building that smelled like cooking spices and old carpet. Lucas's apartment was at the end of a narrow hallway, and Evelyn could hear a TV playing through the door before he even opened it. "We're back," Lucas called as he pushed inside. "Mrs. Chen, thank you so much for staying late." "No problem, Lucas dear." An elderly woman appeared from what must have been the living room, gathering her coat and purse. She gave Evelyn a frankly assessing look. "You must be the date. Nice coat." "Thank you." "Mia's been watching Christmas movies, tried to get her to sleep, but she insisted on waiting up." Mrs. Chen patted Lucas's arm. "Merry Christmas, dear. See you next week." When she left, Lucas and Evelyn stood in the tiny entryway, and Evelyn got her first real look at his life. The apartment was exactly what he'd described. Small, worn, clearly held together with determination and duct tape. But it was also unmistakably a home. Mia's drawings covered the refrigerator. A small artificial Christmas tree sat in the corner, decorated with handmade ornaments. Bookshelves lined every available wall, crammed with architecture books and children's novels and everything in between. "Daddy?" A small voice called from the other room. "Did you bring her?" "I did. Come say hi." Mia Reed appeared in the doorway to the living room, wearing pajamas covered in cartoon rockets and clutching a well-loved stuffed elephant. She was smaller than Evelyn had expected, delicate-featured but with eyes that took in everything. Those eyes fixed on Evelyn now with uncomfortable intensity. "You're really pretty," Mia announced. "Like movie star pretty. Do you have kids?" "Mia," Lucas said. "What did we talk about?" "Not being rude, sorry." But she didn't look particularly sorry. "Do you, though?" "No," Evelyn said, kneeling down so she was at Mia's eye level. "I don't." "How come?" "Mia, it's okay," Evelyn said. She looked at this small, fierce girl and decided honesty was the only option. "I was always too busy with work. I thought there would be time later, but later never came. Mia considered this seriously. That's sad. Yeah, it kind of is. Do you want to watch a movie with us? We're watching Elf. It's really funny. Daddy always falls asleep during the good parts, though. I do not, Lucas started, but Mia shot him a look that was pure 7-year-old skepticism. You snored through the whole department store scene last year. I was tired. You're always tired. Evelyn felt something crack open in her chest watching them bicker, easy, comfortable, the rhythm of people who knew each other completely. This was what she'd given up, this casual intimacy, this sense of belonging to something bigger than herself. I'd love to watch a movie, she heard herself say. Really? Mia's face lit up. Come on, you can sit next to me. Daddy takes up too much room on the couch anyway. The living room was dominated by a couch that had clearly seen better days, a small TV on a hand-me-down stand, and more of Mia's artwork covering the walls. A laptop sat on the coffee table, probably Lucas's, surrounded by sketches and architectural drawings. Mia commandeered the middle of the couch, patting the space beside her imperiously. Evelyn sat, and Lucas settled on Mia's other side. The three of them squeezed together on the small couch. Mia restarted the movie from the beginning without asking, narrating her favorite parts before they happened. Halfway through, she fell asleep with her head on Evelyn's shoulder. The stuffed elephant clutched to her chest. Evelyn froze, afraid to move and disturb her. Lucas noticed, his expression softening. She likes you, he mouthed over Mia's head. She doesn't fall asleep on strangers. What should I do? Don't move. She's like a cat. If you wake her, she'll be up for hours. So Evelyn sat perfectly still, this small, warm weight against her side, and watched Will Ferrell discover he's an elf while Lucas occasionally chuckled at jokes he'd probably heard 100 times. The apartment was warm, too warm, the radiator clanking and hissing, but Evelyn didn't mind. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this settled, this present. When the movie ended, Lucas carefully lifted Mia, who stirred but didn't wake. Let me put her to bed. I'll be right back. Evelyn stood, stretching, taking in the details of the apartment. The architectural drawings on the coffee table were detailed and beautiful. A house design from the looks of it, with clean lines and lots of natural light. Lucas's work, she realized, the work he'd given up. She moved to the small window, looking out at the snow-covered street below. A few blocks away, she could see the distant lights of downtown, the towers where her office sat empty on Christmas Eve. Two different worlds separated by just a few miles and a gulf of experience she was only beginning to understand. Sorry about that. Lucas emerged from what must have been Mia's bedroom, running a hand through his hair. She's out cold. Won't wake up until tomorrow morning when she remembers it's Christmas. She's wonderful. She's a handful, but yeah, wonderful covers it. He hesitated. Thank you for coming here, for meeting her. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. Can I ask why? Evelyn turned from the window to face him. Because in 1 hour, you've been more honest with me than most people have been in years. Because your daughter asked if I wanted to watch a movie and meant it. Because I've spent so long being successful that I forgot what it felt like to just be. Lucas crossed to stand beside her at the window, close enough that she could feel his warmth. I spent an hour in that cafe thinking you were crazy for waiting. Now I think maybe you're the sanest person I've met in a long time. Or we're both crazy. There's that possibility too. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the snow fall. Somewhere in the building, someone was playing Christmas music. In the distance, church bells chimed midnight. Merry Christmas, Lucas said softly. Merry Christmas. I should probably let you go. It's late, and I'm sure you have... Stay, Evelyn said. The word hung between them. I mean, if you want, we could talk more. Or not talk. I don't want to leave yet. Lucas studied her face in the dim light from the window. You really are full of surprises, Evelyn Hart. Good. I'm tired of being predictable. Okay then. How about we make cookies? Mia wanted to bake tonight, but I said no because it was too late. We could make them as a surprise for the morning. I haven't baked cookies in 20 years. Neither have I. We'll figure it out together. So they did. Lucas pulled out ingredients from cabinets that barely closed properly. Flour, sugar, butter that had seen better days. They followed a recipe from a cookbook held together with rubber bands, measuring and mixing while trying not to laugh too loudly and wake Mia. The dough was lumpy. The shapes were uneven. When they put the first batch in the oven, half of them immediately spread into amorphous blobs. It was perfect. "We're terrible at this," Evelyn said, looking at their efforts through the oven door. "The worst. Mia's going to be so disappointed." "Should we try again?" "Absolutely not. These are artisanal disaster cookies. We're committing." They sat on the floor with their backs against the cabinets, waiting for the timer, and talked about everything and nothing. Lucas told her about the house he'd designed in his head, the perfect home he'd build if money were no object. Evelyn talked about the first company she'd invested in, the risk that had paid off and changed her life. They compared their worst Christmas memories. His involved food poisoning at age 12. Hers involved her father giving her a financial planning textbook. "He thought he was being helpful," Evelyn said, "setting me up for success." "Was he?" "I don't know. I'm successful, but I'm also sitting on your kitchen floor on Christmas Eve because I'm so lonely I hired a stranger to spend time with me. Success might be overrated." The timer beeved. The cookies were burnt on the edges and raw in the middle, but they smelled amazing. They ate them anyway, washing them down with milk Lucas poured into mismatched mugs. "These are disgusting," Lucas said, examining a particularly bad specimen. "The worst cookies I've ever had." "Want another?" "Obviously." They were laughing when Evelyn's phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Ms. Hart, it's quite late. Would you like me to come collect you?" Reality crashed back in. She had a driver waiting, an empty penthouse, a life she'd carefully constructed that suddenly felt like a cage. "I should go," she said reluctantly. "Yeah, probably." But Lucas didn't move either. "Thank you. For tonight. For being honest, for the terrible cookies. Thank you for waiting, for showing up, for being someone Mia trusted enough to fall asleep on." They stood in the tiny kitchen, both knowing this should be goodbye, neither willing to say it. The moment stretched, fragile as blown glass. "Can I see you again?" Lucas asked. "I know that's probably not how this works. I know you paid for tonight, and that's supposed to be it. But I'd like to see you again, if you want." "I want," Evelyn said. "I really want." The smile that broke across his face could have lit the whole apartment. "Christmas dinner. Tomorrow, today. Come back. Have dinner with us. It won't be fancy, but I'll be here." "Really? Really?" She texted Michael that she was ready, gathered her coat and purse. Lucas walked her to the door, and they stood in the tiny entryway one more time. "This was the best, worst Christmas Eve I've ever had," Lucas said. "Mine too." He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear with surprising gentleness. "Get home safe, Evelyn Hart." "See you tomorrow, Lucas Reed." She made it all the way down to the car before she started crying. Not sad tears, but something else entirely. Something like hope. Michael, bless him, didn't say a word. Just handed her tissues and drove her home through the silent, snow-covered streets, while behind them, in a tiny apartment 3 stories up, a broke single father stood at his window and wondered if he'd just imagined the whole impossible evening. Neither of them slept much that night. Both of them spent the dark hours thinking about terrible cookies, an honest conversation, and the strange alchemy that happens when 2 lonely people decide to stop pretending they're fine alone. Christmas morning arrived with pale winter light filtering through Evelyn's penthouse windows, turning the city below into something almost magical. She'd been awake since 5, unable to sleep, staring at the ceiling and wondering if last night had actually happened or if loneliness had finally driven her to hallucinate an entire evening. But the borrowed jacket draped over her chair was real. The faint smell of snow and sawdust still clung to it. The phone number Lucas had scrawled on a napkin before she left, his handwriting messy but somehow endearing, sat on her nightstand like evidence of something impossible. She should cancel. That was the sensible thing. Return to her carefully ordered life before this momentary insanity became something more complicated. She'd fulfilled her Christmas Eve obligation to herself, proved she could still connect with another human being, and now she could retreat to safety. Instead, she found herself in the shower at 6:30, Then standing in her walk-in closet at 7, staring at thousands of dollars worth of designer clothing and realizing she had nothing appropriate to wear to Christmas dinner in a 600-square-foot apartment. Everything was too much, too expensive, too obviously wealthy, too Evelyn Hart the billionaire instead of just Evelyn. She finally settled on dark jeans, the most casual item she owned, purchased years ago for a company retreat and never worn, and a simple cashmere sweater. Even this felt like costuming, playing dress up as a normal person, but it was the best she could do. Her phone rang at 8:15. Unknown number. Her heart did something stupid in her chest. Hello? Hi, it's Lucas. Sorry if it's too early. Mia woke up at 6 and has been asking about you every 5 minutes since. I told her you might not come, that you probably had other plans, but she's convinced you're going to show up with presents, and I wanted to warn you that if you do come, she's going to be insufferable with excitement. Evelyn could hear Mia's voice in the background, high and insistent. Is that her? Let me talk. Daddy, let me talk. I'm coming, Evelyn said. I don't have presents, though. Should I? God, no. You don't need to bring anything. Just, if you're really coming, what time should I expect you? What time is dinner? Whenever you want it to be. We're flexible. Exceptionally flexible. Desperately flexible. He paused. I'm rambling. Mia, stop pulling my arm. Yes, you can say hi. There was a fumbling sound. Then Mia's voice came through, breathless with excitement. Are you really coming over? Daddy said you might not, but I knew you would because you liked our cookies, even though they were kind of gross. Did you have a good Christmas morning? I got new books and a telescope and… Mia, breathe, Lucas said in the background. Sorry. Will you come at noon? That's when we usually eat lunch on Christmas and Daddy's making his special grilled cheese. That's not really special, but he calls it that anyway. Evelyn found herself smiling despite the nervousness churning in her stomach. Noon sounds perfect. Yay, okay, bye. The phone fumbled again and Lucas was back. Sorry about that. She's slightly excited. I can tell. Lucas, are you sure about this? I'm sure. Unless you're not sure, in which case I completely understand and I'm sure. The relief in his voice was palpable. Okay, good. Great. I'll see you at noon. After he hung up, Evelyn stood in her silent penthouse holding her phone and wondering what the hell she was doing. 24 hours ago, she'd been alone in her office, contemplating another empty holiday. Now she was getting ready to spend Christmas with a man she barely knew and his 7-year-old daughter. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt more alive than she had in years. At 11:30, she texted Michael that she wouldn't need the car today. She'd take an Uber. The last thing Lucas and Mia needed was a chauffeur-driven Mercedes pulling up to their building, announcing her wealth to the entire neighborhood. The driver who picked her up looked at the address skeptically, but said nothing. The neighborhood looked different in daylight, worn but not desperate, the kind of place where people knew each other, where corner stores were gathering spots and kids played in the streets during summer. Nothing like the sanitized luxury of her district downtown. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs again, her heart pounding harder with each step. What was she walking into? What did she expect to happen? What did she want to happen? Before she could knock, the door flew open. Mia stood there in the same rocket pajamas from last night, her hair sticking up in impossible directions, her eyes bright with excitement. You came. Daddy said you'd come, but I was worried you might forget or get lost or decide we're too boring. She grabbed Evelyn's hand without hesitation, pulling her inside. Come see my telescope. It's in my room and I can show you Saturn, except it's daytime, so we can't actually see it. But I can show you where to look tonight if you want to stay for tonight, too. Can you stay for tonight? Mia, let her breathe, Lucas called from somewhere in the apartment. He appeared from the kitchen, wearing an apron over jeans and a worn t-shirt, flour dusting his forearms. He looked tired but happy, more relaxed than last night. Sorry, she's been like this since dawn. I've created a monster. I'm not a monster. I'm excited. There's a difference. Mia was already dragging Evelyn toward her bedroom. Come on! Mia's room was tiny but magical. A twin bed covered in space-themed bedding, stars glow-taped to the ceiling, bookshelves crammed with novels and science books. The telescope sat by the window, clearly the prized possession of the morning. Mia spent the next 15 minutes explaining how it worked, what planets she wanted to see, how she was going to be an astronaut and study black holes. "Do you know about black holes?" Mia asked seriously. "A little. I know they're dangerous." "They're not dangerous if you respect them. That's what Daddy says about a lot of things. You have to respect them." She adjusted the telescope carefully, like his saws at work. "He showed me pictures once and said they're dangerous, but not if you respect them." "Do you have dangerous things in your job?" Evelyn thought about hostile takeovers, about the lives impacted by her investment decisions, about the weight of managing billions of other people's money. "Yes, different kinds of dangerous, but yes." "Do you respect them?" "I try to." Mia seemed satisfied with this answer. "Good. Come on, we should help Daddy. He's not a very good cook, but he tries really hard." They returned to find Lucas in the kitchen, looking mildly frantic. The small space smelled like burning butter and something else Evelyn couldn't identify. Lucas looked up when they entered, embarrassment flashing across his face. "So, slight change of plans. The fancy Christmas dinner I was planning isn't happening. The chicken I was going to roast was bad, like really bad. Learned that lesson when I opened the package 10 minutes ago." He gestured helplessly at the stove. "So we're having grilled cheese and tomato soup. Very gourmet. Very Christmas." "I love grilled cheese," Evelyn said honestly. "You're just being nice." "I'm really not. I can't remember the last time I had grilled cheese." "That's sad," Mia announced. "Grilled cheese is like the best food." "Right, Daddy?" "Extremely debatable, but sure." Lucas pulled out bread and cheese, clearly resigned to his Christmas dinner failure. "Evelyn, you want to help?" "Fair warning, my kitchen skills are limited to things that involve melting cheese or boiling water." "I'm not much better." But Evelyn rolled up her sleeves and they worked side by side in the cramped kitchen while Mia narrated from her perch on the counter, providing color commentary on their technique. "You're putting too much butter, Daddy." "This is exactly the right amount of butter." "That's what you always say, and the bread always gets too brown." "The brown is the best part." "No, it's not, Evelyn. Tell him the brown isn't the best part." Evelyn looked between them, fighting a smile. "I think the brown might be the best part." "Ha!" Lucas brandished his spatula triumphantly. "Vindication." Mia rolled her eyes with the exaggerated exasperation only a 7-year-old could muster. "You're both wrong. The cheese is the best part. That's why it's called grilled cheese, not grilled bread." They ate at the small table crammed into the corner of the living room, mismatched plates and napkins, their knees bumping in the confined space. The sandwiches were perfect. Crispy and golden, cheese stretching between pieces of bread, exactly what Christmas lunch should be when you stripped away all the pretense. "This is the best Christmas ever," Mia declared through a mouthful of sandwich. "Don't talk with your mouth full," Lucas said automatically. "Sorry, but it is." "Better than last year?" Lucas asked gently. Mia considered this seriously. "Different good. Last year was good because we went to Aunt Sarah's and there were 1,000,000 people. This year's good because it's just us and Evelyn's here and it feels cozy instead of crowded." Something passed over Lucas's face, grief maybe, or relief that Mia was okay with a quieter Christmas. He reached over and ruffled her hair. "Yeah, I think you're right about that, kiddo." After lunch, Mia insisted they play a board game she'd gotten from her aunt, some complicated thing involving building space stations. Evelyn, who routinely negotiated billion-dollar deals, found herself completely lost within 10 minutes. Mia kept explaining the rules with increasing exasperation, while Lucas laughed so hard he couldn't breathe. "How are you this bad at this?" Mia demanded. "It's not even hard." "I think my brain doesn't work this way," Evelyn admitted. "Your brain works with money, right? That's what Daddy said." "Mia," Lucas started, but Evelyn waved him off. "Yeah, my brain works with money." "Can you teach me about money? I want to know how it works. Daddy says we don't have enough of it, but he won't tell me why." The room went very quiet. Lucas's face had gone carefully neutral, the way it had last night when he talked about medical bills and losing his practice. "Mia, that's not—" he began. "It's okay," Evelyn said softly. She looked at this small girl, so bright and curious, trying to understand the forces that shaped her life. "Money is complicated. Having more of it doesn't always make things better, but not having enough makes things harder. Does that make sense? Kind of. Why don't we have enough? Mia, Lucas's voice was firmer now. That's not appropriate to ask. But I want to know. I know you do, but some things are grown-up conversations. He stood abruptly. How about we go look at the telescope? It's getting dark. Mia deflated slightly but followed him to her room, leaving Evelyn alone in the living room. She stood, wandering over to the bookshelf, examining the titles. Mostly library books, she noted. Not many new purchases. The architectural drawings on the coffee table caught her eye again. That beautiful house design, the work Lucas had abandoned. She picked up one of the sketches, studying the clean lines, the way he'd designed the space to maximize natural light and flow. It was brilliant work, the kind of thing that should be built, that people should live in. Sorry about that. Lucas emerged from Mia's room, closing the door softly behind him. She's at the age where she asks about everything and doesn't understand why some questions are uncomfortable. She's just trying to make sense of her world. I know, doesn't make it easier. He saw what she was holding and something flickered across his face. That's old, before everything fell apart. It's beautiful. It's a fantasy, the kind of house I used to dream about designing. Clean lines, lots of glass, built for a family that wanted something custom. A family with money. He took the sketch from her gently, setting it back on the pile. Now I frame other people's versions of that dream and try not to be bitter about it. What if you didn't have to? Lucas went still. What do you mean? What if you could go back to architecture? What would it take? Evelyn, I'm serious. What would it take? Time? Money? Connections? All of the above. His voice had gone tight. Look, I appreciate whatever you're thinking, but I'm not looking for a handout. I know. Evelyn took a breath. But what if it wasn't a handout? What if it was an investment? In what? I don't have a practice anymore. I don't have clients or a portfolio or any of the things you'd need to invest in. You have talent. You have vision. You have these. She gestured at the drawings. That's worth something. Lucas stared at her for a long moment, his jaw working. You've known me for less than 24 hours. I know. You have no idea if I'm any good at what I do. I can see your work. I can see what you're capable of. This is insane. But he wasn't saying no. He was looking at her like she'd just suggested something dangerous and thrilling and terrifying. Probably, Evelyn agreed, but I've spent a long time making safe choices, Lucas. I'm tired of safe. What are you actually proposing? She hadn't thought this through. She was acting on instinct, on the strange certainty that had been building since last night. I don't know yet, but I know you're wasting your talent swinging a hammer when you should be designing. I know I have resources that are sitting in accounts earning interest while you're one emergency away from losing everything. I know. She stopped trying to find the right words. I know I want to help, if you'll let me. Why? The word was raw. Why do you care? Because you waited for me to show up tonight instead of writing off Christmas as another lonely day. Because your daughter fell asleep on my shoulder like I was someone trustworthy. Because I've spent years moving money around and none of it has mattered. Not really. And maybe this could matter. Lucas ran both hands through his hair, clearly overwhelmed. This is crazy. You're crazy. I'm crazy for even listening to this. Probably. I can't accept charity. It's not charity. It's... Evelyn paused. It's me being selfish. You make me feel like a person instead of a balance sheet. I want to keep feeling that way. So maybe helping you isn't noble. Maybe it's just me trying to hold on to something real. The honesty seemed to catch him off guard. He studied her face, searching for something. You really mean that? I really do. I need to think about this. I have Mia to consider. I can't make decisions that might blow up on us. I know, think about it. We don't have to figure anything out tonight. Tonight? He laughed slightly. You say that like there's going to be more nights. Like this isn't just some weird Christmas thing that evaporates when reality kicks back in. Do you want it to evaporate? The question hung between them. From Mia's room came the sound of her humming to herself, presumably still examining her telescope. The radiator clanked and hissed. Outside, someone was laughing in the hallway. "No," Lucas said finally. "No, I don't." "Then it won't. You make it sound simple." "It is simple. We keep showing up. We keep being honest. We see what happens." "In my experience, things are never that simple." "Mine either. But maybe we've been making them too complicated." Mia's door opened and she emerged carrying a book. "Can you read to me? Both of you?" "Daddy does all the voices, but he always forgets which voice goes with which character, and it's annoying." "I do not forget. You do. You made the dragon sound like the princess last time." "The dragon was being sarcastic." "Dragons don't do sarcasm, Daddy." "That's not how dragons work." Evelyn found herself laughing, the tension of the previous conversation dissolving. "What book?" "It's about a girl who builds a spaceship out of recycling." Mia held it up proudly. "It's my favorite. We've read it like 100 times. 63 times, Lucas corrected. "I've been counting." "That's basically 100. They settled on the couch again, Mia between them, and Lucas read while Evelyn followed along. He was good at the voices, bringing each character to life despite Mia's insistent corrections. The girl in the story reminded Evelyn of Mia, determined, creative, refusing to accept that her circumstances limited her dreams. Halfway through, Mia's head started to droop. The excitement of Christmas morning was catching up with her. By the time Lucas reached the end, she was asleep again, curled against Evelyn's side just like last night. "This is becoming a pattern," Lucas said softly, smiling at his daughter. "I think she's decided you're safe." "How can she tell? She barely knows me." "Kids know things. They're better at reading people than adults are. We get cynical, but kids, they trust their instincts." He gently lifted Mia, and this time Evelyn stood with him, following him to Mia's room. They tucked her into bed together, pulling the space-themed comforter up to her chin. Mia stirred slightly but didn't wake. Lucas kissed her forehead, and Evelyn felt her chest constrict watching the simple gesture of love. Back in the living room, the apartment felt different in the early evening light, more intimate. The Christmas tree lights glowed softly, and Lucas turned off the overhead fixture, leaving them in semi-darkness. "Coffee?" he offered. "I should warn you, it's terrible. Not like that fancy stuff at Rosie's." "I'd love some." They stood in the kitchen while the ancient coffee maker sputtered and hissed. Lucas leaned against the counter, his arms crossed, studying her in the dim light. "I can't figure you out," he admitted. "Why you're really here. What you want from this." "Maybe I don't know either. That scares me." "Why?" "Because I have a daughter who's already attached to you. Because I'm—" He stopped, seeming to reconsider his words. "Because I'm starting to care what happens here, and that's dangerous when neither of us knows what we're doing." Evelyn moved closer, drawn by something she couldn't name. "Would it help if I told you I'm terrified?" "Of what?" "Of how easy this feels. Of how much I want to stay here instead of going back to my empty apartment. Of how I keep thinking about what it would be like to have this—" She gestured vaguely at the small apartment, the sleeping child down the hall, him. "To have this be real instead of just a weird Christmas experiment." Lucas's expression softened. "Yeah, that helps." "Because you're terrified too?" "Because you're being honest. I can work with honest." The coffee finished brewing and they took their mugs back to the couch. Outside, the snow had started again, big flakes drifting past the window. Evelyn realized she'd been here for hours and didn't want to leave. "Tell me something real," Lucas said. "Something you don't usually tell people." Evelyn thought about deflecting, about keeping her careful walls in place. Instead, she found herself saying, "I'm lonely. Not just alone. Lonely. I have 1,000 contacts in my phone and no one I can call at 2 in the morning. I have colleagues and clients and people who want things from me, but I don't have friends. Not real ones. I can't remember the last time someone asked how I was doing and actually wanted to know the answer." Lucas was quiet for a moment. "How are you doing?" "Better than I've been in years. Worse than I should be, given everything I have. Confused about what comes next." She looked at him. "Your turn. Something real. I dream about Kelly sometimes. Not sad dreams, good ones. We're young again. Before Mia. Before cancer. Just us. And when I wake up, there's always this moment where I forget she's gone. Then I remember, and it's like losing her all over again." His voice cracked slightly. "I feel guilty that I'm starting to have more days where I don't think about her, like I'm betraying her memory by learning to be okay. I don't think that's how it works." "No? I think she'd want you to be okay, to be more than okay, to let yourself be happy. You didn't know her. I know you loved her. I know she gave you Mia. I know she'd probably think you're an idiot for feeling guilty about moving forward." Lucas laughed, the sound watery. "Yeah, she probably would. Kelly was practical like that. She made me promise at the end that I wouldn't turn into some tragic widower who stopped living. She said she'd haunt me if I got pathetic." "She sounds amazing." "She was. And she'd like you, I think. She always said I needed someone who'd call me on my bullshit." He set down his coffee mug, turning to face her more fully. "This is moving fast. Too fast, probably." "Probably. We should slow down. Be rational, not make any big decisions." "Absolutely." "So why do I want to kiss you right now?" Evelyn's breath caught. "I don't know. Why do I want you to?" "Because we're both idiots who don't know how to do things the normal way." "That sounds accurate." He reached out, his hand cupping her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. "Tell me to stop." "I don't want you to stop." The kiss was soft at first, tentative, both of them testing boundaries they weren't sure existed. Then Lucas's other hand found her waist, and Evelyn's fingers tangled in his hair, and suddenly they weren't testing anything. They were claiming something, confirming something that had been building since the moment he'd crashed through Rosie's door covered in snow. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucas pressed his forehead to hers. "Okay, so that happened. That happened. I don't do this. I don't kiss women I barely know. I haven't. Not since Kelly. We can stop." "I don't want to stop. That's the problem. I should want to stop. I should be responsible and careful and think about Mia and not screw this up by rushing into something. Instead, I want to keep kissing you until I figure out why this feels so right." Evelyn pulled back enough to see his face. "What if we don't figure it out? What if we just accept that it feels right and see where that takes us?" "That's not very logical." "I'm tired of logic. Logic got me a $3 billion company and an empty life. Maybe it's time to try something else." Lucas studied her face, his expression unreadable. "You're really something, Evelyn Hart. Is that good or bad?" "I'm still deciding." They kissed again, slower this time, more thorough, learning the shape of each other. When they finally stopped, Lucas pulled her against his side, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the snow fall through the window. "Stay," Lucas said eventually. "It's late, the weather's terrible, and I don't want you going across the city in this. You can have my bed. I'll take the couch." "I can't." "Yes, you can. Mia will be thrilled to wake up and find you still here. He paused. "I'll sleep better knowing you're not out in this storm." Evelyn knew she should protest, should maintain some boundary, should retreat to familiar territory. Instead, she heard herself say, "Okay, but you're not taking the couch. Your bed is big enough for 2 adults to sleep without it being weird." "Evelyn, just sleeping. I trust you. Do you trust me?" He looked at her for a long moment, something vulnerable in his expression. "Yeah, I trust you, which is possibly the craziest thing about this whole situation, but yeah, I do." They got ready for bed awkwardly, Lucas lending her a t-shirt and sweatpants that were comically too large. His bathroom was tiny, the shower stall barely big enough to turn around in, but there was something charming about its worn functionality. Everything worked even if nothing matched. Lucas's bedroom was barely bigger than Mia's. Room for the double bed and a small dresser. Nothing else. They lay down on opposite sides of the bed, a careful space between them, both staring at the ceiling. "This is weird," Lucas said. "Extremely weird. But also kind of nice?" "Yeah, kind of nice." In the darkness, Lucas's hand found hers in the space between them. Their fingers intertwined, and Evelyn felt something settle in her chest, a rightness she hadn't known she was looking for. "Evelyn?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for coming, for staying, for not running away when you saw how messy my life is. Your life isn't messy, it's real. That's better. He squeezed her hand. Get some sleep. Mia's going to wake us up at dawn wanting to show you her telescope again. I'm looking forward to it. And she was. That was the surprising thing. She was actually looking forward to being woken at dawn by an excited 7-year-old, to instant coffee and leftover grilled cheese for breakfast, to another day in this tiny apartment that somehow felt more like home than her penthouse ever had. She fell asleep holding Lucas's hand, listening to the rhythm of his breathing, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she didn't feel alone. Evelyn woke to whispers and the smell of burnt toast. For a disorienting moment, she couldn't remember where she was. The bed was too small, the ceiling too close, the sounds all wrong. Then Lucas's side of the bed shifted, and memory flooded back. The apartment. Christmas. Everything that had happened in the past 2 days. She kept her eyes closed, listening to the hushed conversation happening somewhere near the bedroom door. But when is she going to wake up? Mia, it's 6:30 in the morning. Normal people sleep past 6:30. We're awake. We're not normal people. We're deranged morning people. It's a genetic curse. Can I go look at her? Absolutely not. That's creepy. Let her sleep. But I want to show her Saturn. You said we could look at Saturn this morning before the sun comes up too much. And we will, after she wakes up, on her own, without you staring at her like some kind of tiny stalker. Evelyn smiled despite herself and opened her eyes. Lucas was standing in the doorway in flannel pajama pants and a worn t-shirt, his hair sticking up at odd angles, trying to physically block Mia from entering the room. Mia was already dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt covered in planets, practically vibrating with impatience. I'm awake, Evelyn said, sitting up. Mia's face lit up like someone had plugged her into an electrical socket. You're awake. Can we look at Saturn now, please? Daddy said we could, and it's going to be too light soon and we'll miss it. Mia, maybe Evelyn wants coffee first, or Saturn sounds perfect, Evelyn said, swinging her legs out of bed. She was still wearing Lucas's too large clothes, her hair probably a disaster, but Mia didn't seem to notice or care. The little girl grabbed her hand and pulled her toward her bedroom, chattering about orbital periods and ring composition with the confidence of someone who'd memorized every space book in the library. Lucas followed them, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. He handed one to Evelyn with an apologetic smile. Sorry about the wake-up call. I tried to give you another hour. It's fine. And it was. The coffee was terrible, just like he'd warned, but his fingers brushed hers when he handed her the mug, and the small touch sent warmth through her that had nothing to do with the temperature of the drink. Mia had already positioned the telescope by the window, adjusting it with careful precision. Okay, come look. You have to close one eye and look through here, and at first it's going to be blurry, but then your eye adjusts and you can see it. Evelyn bent down, peering through the eyepiece. At first she saw nothing but darkness. Then a pale point of light swam into focus. It was small, distant, but unmistakably Saturn, the rings visible even through the modest telescope, a tiny perfect world suspended in the void. I see it, she whispered. Isn't it beautiful? Mia pressed close beside her, her excitement palpable. That's like 1 billion miles away, and we can see it from my bedroom. Daddy says that's basically magic. Your daddy's right. They took turns looking, Mia explaining everything she knew about the planet, Lucas adding commentary, Evelyn just absorbing the strange perfection of the moment. Standing in a cramped bedroom in borrowed clothes, looking at distant planets with a man she barely knew and his extraordinary daughter, she felt more present than she had in years of carefully scheduled meetings and strategic planning sessions. When the sky grew too bright to see Saturn clearly, Mia reluctantly abandoned the telescope. Okay, now we have breakfast. Daddy's making pancakes. They're going to be lumpy because he always makes them lumpy, but they still taste good. They're not lumpy, they're rustic, Lucas protested. That's just a fancy word for lumpy. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just finally noticed. Breakfast was indeed lumpy pancakes, some burnt, some undercooked, all of them somehow perfect, eaten at the small table with syrup that came from a plastic bottle shaped like a cabin. Mia dominated the conversation, asking Evelyn a million questions about her job, her apartment, whether she'd ever been to space, whether she thought aliens were real, whether she knew any famous people. "Do you know the president?" Mia asked through a mouthful of pancake. "I've met him at a fundraiser." "Did you talk to him?" "Briefly." "What did you talk about?" "Economic policy, mostly." "That sounds boring." It really was. Lucas was watching this exchange with barely concealed amusement. "You don't have to answer her interrogation, you know. She does this to everyone." "I don't mind." And she didn't. There was something refreshing about Mia's blunt curiosity, the way she asked questions without pretense or agenda. "What about you, Mia? What do you want to be when you grow up?" "An astronaut or a veterinarian, or maybe both. I could be a veterinarian who goes to space and takes care of animals on the space station." "There aren't animals on the space station," Lucas pointed out gently. "Not yet, but there could be. Someone has to be the first space veterinarian." "Why not me?" Why not indeed, Evelyn thought. This child who lived in a 600-square-foot apartment and wore second-hand clothes had dreams as big as the universe. It made Evelyn's carefully managed ambitions feel small by comparison. After breakfast, Mia wanted to play another board game, but Lucas intervened. "Actually, kiddo, I need to talk to Evelyn for a few minutes. Grown-up stuff. Can you entertain yourself?" Mia's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What kind of grown-up stuff?" "Boring grown-up stuff." "Are you going to talk about kissing? Because I saw you last night. I got up to get water and you were kissing on the couch." Lucas's face went through several interesting color changes. "Mia, it's okay. I don't mind. Mommy said before she died that she wanted you to find someone who made you smile again. Do you smile when you're with Evelyn?" The question hung in the air. Lucas looked at Evelyn, something raw and vulnerable in his expression. Yeah, I do." "Then it's okay that you were kissing." Mia said this with the finality of someone who'd solved a complex equation. "I'm going to read in my room. Come get me when you're done with the boring stuff." When she'd gone, Lucas dropped his head into his hands. "I am so sorry. There's no filter. None. I should have been more careful last night. She seems fine with it. She's 7. She doesn't understand what this is. Hell, I don't understand what this is." He looked up at her. "Do you?" Evelyn moved her chair closer to his, their knees touching under the small table. "I understand that I should have gone home yesterday, that I should be keeping my distance, that this is all happening too fast and breaking every rule about how adults are supposed to handle things." She took his hand. "But I also understand that I don't want to leave, that I want to figure out what this is instead of running from it. Does that make sense?" "Unfortunately, yes." He squeezed her hand. "I've been thinking about what you said about investing in my architecture work." And I don't know if it's a good idea. I don't know if I can trust that this isn't just, that you're not just caught up in some kind of Christmas fantasy that's going to evaporate when you get back to your real life. The words stung because they echoed her own fears. What if I told you I'm scared of the same thing? That I'm worried I'm going to wake up tomorrow and realize this was all some kind of break from reality? That doesn't exactly inspire confidence. I know, but here's what I do know. I meant what I said about your work. Christmas fantasy or not, you're talented. These designs, she gestured at the architectural drawings still scattered on the coffee table. They deserve to exist, and you deserve to be doing the work you were meant to do instead of killing yourself on a construction crew. It's not that simple. Why not? Because accepting your money means accepting that I can't do this on my own. It means admitting I need help. It means... He stopped, his jaw tight. It means I'm the guy who needed a billionaire to rescue him, and that's not who I want to be. Is that what you think this is? A rescue? Isn't it? Evelyn pulled her hand back, frustration rising. I'm not trying to rescue you, Lucas. I'm trying to invest in something I believe in. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're trying to fix my life because it makes you feel good about yours. The accusation landed like a punch. Evelyn felt her defenses rising, the familiar armor of anger she wore in business negotiations. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it might be true. He ran his hands through his hair. Look, I don't want to fight with you. I need to understand what you're actually offering here. Business investment, charity, Some kind of relationship package deal where you fix my finances and I fix your loneliness? Is that what you think I want? I don't know what you want. You're a billionaire who showed up at a cafe on Christmas Eve looking for something you couldn't find in your own world. Now you're in my apartment, wearing my clothes, talking about investing in my dreams. What am I supposed to think? They stared at each other across the small table, the air between them charged with hurt and confusion. From Mia's room came the sound of her humming to herself, oblivious to the tension in the next room. Evelyn took a breath, forcing herself to think past the anger. You want honesty? Here's honesty. Yes, I'm lonely. Yes, I'm looking for something real because my entire life feels synthetic. But that doesn't mean this, she gestured between them, isn't genuine. It doesn't mean I'm using you to feel better about myself. Then what does it mean? It means I'm trying. I'm trying to connect with someone, to matter to someone, to be more than just a walking portfolio. And yes, I want to help you because I care about you and Mia. Is that so terrible? Lucas closed his eyes briefly. No, it's not terrible. It's scary. Why? Because I want to believe you. Because I want to accept your help and take the risk and see where this goes. But I've already lost everything once. If I let you in and this falls apart, if Mia gets attached to you and you disappear, I don't know if we'll survive that. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something open in Evelyn's chest. She understood the fear he was describing, the terror of risking everything on something fragile and uncertain. She'd spent her entire career avoiding exactly that kind of risk. I can't promise I won't mess this up, she said quietly. I probably will at some point. I'm better with spreadsheets than people, but I can promise I won't disappear. I can promise I'll show up. That has to count for something. Lucas looked at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Yeah, it does. He reached for her hand again. I'm sorry for what I said. You're not trying to rescue me. I'm not good at accepting help, even when I desperately need it. I noticed. It's a pride thing. Stubborn, masculine pride that's probably going to destroy me someday. Probably. She smiled slightly. But I kind of like your stubborn, masculine pride, even when it's being stupid. Thanks? You're welcome. They sat in silence for a moment, the fight dissipating as quickly as it had flared. Outside, the city was coming to life, sounds of traffic and voices drifting up from the street. The day after Christmas, and the world was returning to normal. Except nothing felt normal anymore. So where does this leave us? Lucas asked finally. I don't know. Where do you want it to leave us? He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. I want to try. I want to figure out if this is real or if we're both just lost people who found each other at the right moment. I want to introduce you to my daughter properly, not as some woman who showed up for Christmas, but as someone who might be in our lives. I want to stop being so scared of needing someone that I push away the first person who's made me feel like myself in 3 years. That's a lot of wants. Yeah, it is. He smiled, tentative but genuine. What about you? What do you want? Evelyn thought about her penthouse, her office, her carefully structured life that had seemed so important 48 hours ago. I want to keep showing up. I want to meet your daughter properly and see if she still likes me when I'm not just a novelty. I want to figure out if there's a way to help you get back to architecture that doesn't make you feel like I'm rescuing you. She paused. I want to see if I can build something real for once, instead of just managing other people's money. We're both kind of a mess, aren't we? Completely. But maybe 2 messes can figure things out together? That's either wisdom or delusion. I'm not sure which. Let's go with wisdom. It sounds better. Mia appeared in the doorway, her book tucked under her arm. Are you done with the boring stuff? Because I want to show Evelyn my book about black holes. Lucas looked at Evelyn, raising an eyebrow in question. She nodded, and he turned back to Mia. Yeah, kiddo, we're done with the boring stuff. Come tell us about black holes. So they spent the rest of the morning on the couch, Mia wedged between them, explaining the physics of black holes with the confidence of someone who'd watched every documentary available. Evelyn listened, asking questions, watching the way Lucas's face softened when he looked at his daughter. This was what she'd been missing, Not just connection, but purpose. Not just company, but family. Around noon, Evelyn's phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, her assistant. A reminder that she had a board meeting tomorrow, that there were papers to review, that her real life was waiting. "I should probably head home," she said reluctantly. "I have work tomorrow." "On the day after Christmas?" "Financial markets don't really do holidays." Lucas studied her face. "When will I see you again?" "When do you want to see me again? Tonight? Tomorrow? Every day for the foreseeable future?" He said it lightly, but there was real question underneath. "Too much?" "Not too much." Evelyn glanced at Mia, who was pretending not to listen while obviously hanging on every word. "What if I came back for dinner? Say, 6 o'clock?" "We'd like that." "Right, Mia?" "Yes, can we make spaghetti? I like spaghetti, and Evelyn probably likes spaghetti too because everyone likes spaghetti." "Spaghetti it is." Evelyn gathered her things, her clothes from yesterday, now dry but wrinkled. Lucas walked her to the door while Mia went to put away her book. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for staying, for putting up with my crisis this morning, for not running away when things got complicated. Things are always complicated. This just feels like it might be worth the complications." He kissed her then, soft and sweet, a promise of something. When they broke apart, he was smiling. 6 o'clock, don't be late, or Mia will send out a search party." "I'll be here." The Uber ride back to her penthouse felt surreal, like traveling between two different worlds. The driver made small talk about the weather, while Evelyn stared out the window, watching Lucas's neighborhood give way to downtown, worn buildings replaced by gleaming towers. Her apartment was exactly as she'd left it, pristine, empty, silent. She walked through rooms that suddenly felt like a museum, beautiful but lifeless. The view from her floor-to-ceiling windows was spectacular, the whole city spread out below her. But she found herself missing the view from Lucas's window, the small patch of street where real people lived real lives. She showered, changed into clothes that actually fit, checked her email. Hundreds of messages, most of them routine, a few requiring immediate attention. She spent the afternoon working, falling back into familiar patterns, but her mind kept drifting. What was Lucas doing? Was Mia still talking about Saturn? Were they having leftover pancakes for lunch? At 4 o'clock, her phone rang. Lucas's number. "Hey," he said when she answered. "So, small problem. Mia wants to know if you like garlic bread. Apparently, this is a crucial question that determines the success of the entire dinner." Evelyn laughed. "I love garlic bread." "She says to tell you she's making it herself. Fair warning, it's going to be either inedible or the best garlic bread you've ever had. There's no middle ground with Mia's cooking." "I'm looking forward to finding out which." "Also, she wants to know if you have any allergies or foods you hate. She's taking this dinner very seriously." "No allergies. I eat pretty much everything." "Good. That simplifies things." "Okay, she's satisfied. See you at 6. "Lucas?" "Yeah?" "Thanks for calling, for including me in the garlic bread summit." "Of course, He paused. "You're part of this now. If you want to be." "I want to be." After he hung up, Evelyn sat staring at her phone, trying to process the warmth spreading through her chest. She was part of something. After years of being separate, above, isolated by her success, she was actually part of someone's ordinary life. She arrived at Lucas's building at 5:45, not wanting to be late, climbed the 3 flights of stairs, knocked on the door. Mia answered, wearing an apron that was at least 3 sizes too big for her. "You're early. That's good. Daddy says the spaghetti is almost ready, but the garlic bread needs supervision. Come supervise." The apartment smelled amazing, garlic and tomato sauce and bread baking. Lucas was at the stove, stirring a pot, his hair damp like he'd just showered. He looked up when Evelyn entered, and his smile was everything she'd been missing in her empty penthouse. "Welcome back," he said. "Thanks for having me." "Always." They ate dinner at the small table, knees bumping, Mia's garlic bread turning out to be surprisingly good. The conversation flowed easily, Mia talking about school starting again next week, Lucas mentioning a new project at the construction site, Evelyn finding herself sharing stories about her early days building her company. Normal conversation, the kind families had every night. Except this felt extraordinary in its ordinariness. After dinner, after Mia was in bed, after the dishes were done, Lucas and Evelyn sat on the couch in the dim light from the Christmas tree. "I talked to my boss today," Lucas said. "Told him I might be cutting back my hours. He wasn't thrilled." "Are you sure about this?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." He turned to face her. "I've been thinking about your offer, about investing, and I want to propose something different. I'm listening. What if instead of you just giving me money, we made it a real partnership? You invest, yes, but I pay you back. With interest. Like an actual business loan. That way it's not charity, it's business. We draw up contracts, make it official, keep everything clean and professional. Except we're not professional. We're..." She gestured between them. "Whatever this is." "I know, which is why we need the structure. Clear boundaries. That way if the personal stuff falls apart, we've still got the business relationship protecting both of us." It was smart, Evelyn had to admit. The kind of careful planning she'd have recommended to any client. But it also felt like an insurance policy against failure, and some part of her wanted to believe they didn't need insurance. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's do it right. Legal contracts, clear terms, actual business arrangement." "Really?" "Really. On one condition." "What's that?" "You let me meet your daughter properly, not as a business partner, as someone you're dating. If we're going to do this, let's do all of it honestly. Business separate from personal, but both things real." Lucas was quiet for a long moment. "You want to date me?" "Is that so surprising?" "Kind of, yeah. You're a billionaire, I'm a broke single dad. This seems like the plot of a romantic comedy, not real life." "Maybe real life gets to be romantic sometimes." "Maybe." He smiled, pulling her closer. "Okay, yes, I'd like to date you, Evelyn Hart. Officially, with all the awkwardness and complications that entails." "Good, because I'd like to date you too, Lucas Reed." They kissed again, longer this time, deeper, and Evelyn felt something settle in her chest. This was real, messy and complicated, and absolutely real. When they finally broke apart, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. "Stay again tonight?" "I have that board meeting tomorrow morning." "So leave early. I'll make you terrible coffee and burnt toast." "You're really selling it." "I'm trying." He kissed her softly. "Please? I sleep better when you're here." So she stayed. And in the morning, when Mia burst into the room at 6:30 demanding they all look at Mars before school, Evelyn didn't mind. She drank terrible coffee and ate burnt toast and watched Lucas try to wrangle his daughter into getting dressed for school, and she felt more alive than she had in any boardroom. At 7:30, she kissed them both goodbye, Lucas at the door, Mia surprising her with a fierce hug, and headed downtown to her meeting. She walked into that boardroom wearing yesterday's clothes and last night's makeup, and she didn't care. For the first time in her career, something mattered more than the performance. The meeting went fine. The numbers were good, the projections solid. Her team praised her decisions, her instincts, her leadership. Everything she'd worked for, everything she'd built, and none of it felt as important as the text that came through halfway through the presentation. Lucas, "Mia says you're her favorite person ever, just thought you should know." Evelyn smiled at her phone, and her CFO paused mid-sentence to ask if she was okay. "I'm perfect," she said, and for once, she actually meant it. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of doubled lives. Evelyn would spend her days in sleek conference rooms making decisions that moved millions of dollars, then her evenings in Lucas's cramped apartment, helping Mia with homework and learning to make spaghetti that didn't stick to the pot. She maintained her penthouse but barely slept there, finding excuses to stay over more nights than not. Her assistant noticed but said nothing, though Jessica's carefully neutral expression spoke volumes. Lucas had given notice at the construction site, cutting back to 3 days a week, while he rebuilt his architecture portfolio. Evelyn had insisted on advancing him enough money to cover the income loss, framing it as part of their business arrangement. They'd spent hours with her lawyers drafting contracts that satisfied Lucas's pride while giving him the resources he needed. It was all very professional on paper. In reality, they were building something neither of them quite knew how to name. On a Thursday evening in mid-January, Evelyn arrived at the apartment to find Lucas at the kitchen table surrounded by sketches and fabric samples, his laptop open to a video call. He looked up when she entered, stress evident in the tight lines around his eyes. "Hey, sorry, I'm on with a potential client. Mrs. Patterson, this is Evelyn. Evelyn, Mrs. Patterson wants us to redesign her kitchen." "Us?" Evelyn mouthed silently. Lucas gave her a look that said they'd discuss it later. "Mrs. Patterson, as I was saying, we can definitely incorporate more natural light with a skylight here." Evelyn moved past him into the living room where Mia was sprawled on the floor, surrounded by construction paper and markers, working on what appeared to be a solar system model. "Hi," Mia said without looking up. "I'm making Jupiter. Did you know it has 79 moons? That's crazy. I can't even draw 79 moons. I'm doing like 10 and calling it good." "That seems reasonable." Evelyn set down her bag and coat, settling on the floor beside Mia. "Need help? Can you cut out the rings for Saturn? My rings always look weird." They worked in comfortable silence while Lucas's voice drifted from the kitchen, professional and confident. This was a side of him Evelyn hadn't seen yet. Lucas the architect, not Lucas the struggling single dad. He was good at this, she realized. Really good. The way he talked through design choices, anticipated problems, offered creative solutions. This was what he was meant to be doing. 20 minutes later, he ended the call and came into the living room, dropping onto the couch with an exhausted sigh. "Well?" Evelyn asked. "She hired me. Us. Whatever we're calling this operation." He ran his hands through his hair. "It's a small job, just a kitchen remodel, but it's a start. And she mentioned she has friends who might be interested in custom work." "Daddy's going to be a real architect again," Mia announced, not looking up from her careful coloring of Jupiter's great red spot. "That means he won't be so tired all the time." Lucas's expression softened. "That's the plan, kiddo." "When do you start?" Evelyn asked. "Next week. I'll need to do the initial measurements and consultations, work up some design options. It's going to be tight juggling this and the construction work, but..." He smiled, and it reached his eyes for the first time in days. "It's worth it. God, it feels good to actually be doing this again." "We should celebrate," Evelyn said. "We should finish my solar system," Mia countered. "It's due tomorrow, and Jupiter needs like 5 more moons minimum." So they celebrated by making construction paper moons and arguing about whether Pluto counted as a planet, ordering pizza because no one felt like cooking, and watching a documentary about space exploration that had Mia asking approximately 400 follow-up questions. Normal evening activities. The kind of mundane domestic routine that Evelyn had never experienced but was learning to crave. Later, after Mia was asleep and they were cleaning up the construction paper debris, Lucas pulled Evelyn aside. "I said us to Mrs. Patterson because she saw your name on the business documents. Asked if you were my partner." He hesitated. "I didn't correct her. Should I have? Do you want me to be your partner? In the business sense?" "I don't know. You've got your own company to run. You don't need to be involved in my kitchen remodels." "What if I want to be involved?" Lucas studied her face. "Why would you want that?" "Because I'm tired of moving other people's money around. Because I used to love the build. Finding companies with potential, helping them grow, being part of something from the ground up. Somewhere along the way, it became just about returns and projections, and I lost the part that mattered." She picked up a piece of construction paper shaped like Saturn. "Your architecture practice could be something real, something that creates actual value instead of just shuffling numbers." "You're romanticizing this. Kitchen remodels aren't glamorous." "Neither is venture capital when you actually do the work. At least architecture produces something people can live in." Lucas was quiet for a long moment. "If we do this, if you actually become my business partner, we need clear boundaries. I can't have our personal relationship bleeding into business decisions." "Agreed. And I need to know you're committed, that you're not going to lose interest in 6 months when the novelty wears off." The words stung, but Evelyn understood the fear behind them. "I can't promise I won't screw up, but I can promise I won't abandon you. Not personally, not professionally." "Okay then." He held out his hand formally. "Partners?" She shook it, trying not to smile at the absurdity of conducting business negotiations in his living room while wearing sweatpants. Partners. They sealed the agreement with a kiss that started chaste and quickly became more complicated. Lucas pulled back first, breathing hard. Mia's right down the hall. I know. And we said we'd keep things separate, business and personal. We did say that. So maybe we should. But he didn't finish the sentence, just kissed her again, deeper this time, his hands finding the hem of her shirt. They made it to his bedroom, barely, trying to be quiet and mostly failing. Afterwards, lying tangled together in the too small bed, Lucas traced patterns on her shoulder. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. Evelyn's stomach clenched. Nothing good ever followed that phrase. Okay. Kelly's parents want to see Mia. They called today while you were at work. He paused. They haven't seen her since the funeral, said they needed time to grieve, but now they're ready and they want regular visitation. That's good, isn't it? Mia should know her grandparents. Except they also mentioned they're concerned about my ability to provide properly. Asked if I'd considered private school for Mia, tutors, whether I was setting aside money for college. All these subtle implications that I'm not doing enough. Are they right? Lucas tensed. I'm doing the best I can with what I have. I know. I didn't mean... Evelyn sat up, looking at him. What are you worried about? That they're going to try to take her. Not legally, maybe, but they have money. Real money. They could offer Mia things I can't. Better schools, nicer clothes, opportunities I'll never be able to afford, even with the architecture work taking off. His voice cracked slightly. What if they convince her she'd be better off with them? Lucas, I know it sounds paranoid, but you didn't hear the tone in her grandfather's voice. The way he kept emphasizing all the things they could provide. Like I'm failing her by being poor. Evelyn lay back down, pulling him against her. Mia loves you. That's not something money can replace. But what if love isn't enough? What if she gets older and realizes all the things she's missing out on because of me? Then you deal with it together. But right now she's happy. She has a father who adores her, a home where she feels safe, dreams as big as the universe. That's not nothing. Lucas was silent for a long moment. They're coming next weekend, Saturday afternoon. I thought, if you're comfortable with it, maybe you could be here? I know it's asking a lot, but I could use the moral support. Of course I'll be here. It might be awkward. They don't know about you. About us. Then tell them. Just like that? Why not? We're together. You're not hiding me, are you? No, God, no, I don't want to complicate things with them more than they already are. Evelyn understood what he wasn't saying. She was another thing Kelly's parents could judge him for, another example of how he'd moved on while they were still grieving. But hiding their relationship felt wrong, like admitting there was something shameful about it. Tell them, she said firmly. I can handle awkward. Saturday arrived too quickly. Evelyn showed up at 11, finding Lucas in full anxiety mode, cleaning things that were already clean, reorganizing Mia's bookshelf, checking his phone every 30 seconds. They're not due until 2, Evelyn pointed out. I know, I'm just... He stopped, shaking his head. I'm being ridiculous. You're being nervous. There's a difference. She took the dustcloth from his hands. Come sit. You're going to wear a hole in the floor pacing like that. Mia was surprisingly calm about the whole thing, coloring at the kitchen table with single-minded focus. When Evelyn asked if she was excited to see her grandparents, Mia shrugged. I guess. I don't really remember them much. Daddy says they loved Mommy a lot, and that's why they stayed away, because seeing me made them too sad. The casual way she said it broke Evelyn's heart. This child had learned to accept that her existence caused people pain. I'm sure they'll be happy to see you now, Evelyn said carefully. Maybe. Or maybe they'll still be sad. Daddy gets sad sometimes when he looks at Mommy's pictures. He thinks I don't notice, but I do. Lucas, who'd been listening from the couch, looked like he'd been punched. He came over and knelt beside Mia's chair. Hey, sometimes I am sad when I look at Mommy's pictures. Not because of you. Never because of you. Because I miss her. There's a difference. But I look like her, right? That's what everyone says. So looking at me is kind of like looking at her. You do look like her. You have her eyes, her smile. But when I look at you, I see you. Mia, my daughter. The best thing that ever happened to me. He tucked her hair behind her ear. Your grandparents might be sad sometimes too. That's okay. It doesn't mean they don't love you. Okay. Mia went back to her coloring, apparently satisfied with this explanation. 7-year-old resilience was a beautiful and heartbreaking thing. At 2 o'clock exactly, the buzzer rang. Lucas took a deep breath, pressed the button to let them up, and positioned himself by the door like he was preparing for battle. The couple who emerged from the stairwell looked exactly like Evelyn had imagined. Wealthy, well-dressed, carrying themselves with the certainty of people who'd never had to worry about money. Kelly's mother was elegant in a way that spoke of careful maintenance, her gray hair styled perfectly, her coat probably worth more than Lucas's monthly rent. Her father was tall, distinguished, the kind of man who commanded boardrooms. They stopped short when they saw Evelyn, surprise flickering across their faces. "Richard, Patricia," Lucas said. "Please, come in. This is Evelyn, my—" He hesitated just a fraction of a second. "My girlfriend." Patricia's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "How nice to meet you. Lucas didn't mention he was seeing anyone." "It's fairly recent," Lucas said, tension evident in his shoulders. Richard's gaze swept the apartment, taking in the cramped space, the worn furniture, the general shabbiness that no amount of cleaning could hide. Evelyn saw the judgment in his expression and felt her own defenses rising. "Grandma! Grandpa!" Mia appeared from the kitchen, brightening at the sight of them. She launched herself at Patricia, who caught her with genuine warmth that softened her expression considerably. "Oh, my darling girl, look how much you've grown." Patricia held Mia at arm's length, drinking her in. "You're beautiful, just like your mother." "That's what everyone says. Want to see my room? I have a telescope now, a real one." "We'd love to see it." Mia dragged them toward her bedroom, chattering about planets and space and her dreams of being an astronaut. Lucas and Evelyn were left standing in the living room, listening to the sounds of Mia's enthusiastic tour drifting through the thin walls. "Well," Lucas said quietly, "that went better than expected. She didn't mention the apartment being too small." "Yet," Evelyn said. "Give them time." She was right. 20 minutes later, after admiring Mia's telescope and books and drawings, they returned to the living room. Patricia settled on the couch with Mia beside her, asking gentle questions about school and friends. Richard remained standing, his attention fixed on Lucas. "We'd like to discuss Mia's schooling," Richard said without preamble. "Patricia and I have been looking into options. There's an excellent private academy not far from our home, strong academics, excellent college placement rates. We'd be happy to cover the tuition." Lucas's jaw tightened. "Mia's school is fine. She's doing well there." "I'm sure she is, but fine isn't the same as excellence. This academy has programs for gifted children, science clubs, advanced mathematics. Given Mia's obvious intelligence, she deserves access to the best education available. She has access to a good education. She's happy where she is. Happiness isn't the only consideration. We're talking about her future." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Evelyn could see Lucas struggling with his temper, his hands clenched at his sides. Mia had gone quiet, sensing the conflict even if she didn't fully understand it. "Richard," Patricia said softly, a warning in her tone. "Perhaps we could discuss this another time." "Why?" "It's a reasonable offer, unless Lucas has some objection to us wanting to help our granddaughter succeed." "I have an objection to you implying I'm not providing for my daughter." Lucas's voice was carefully controlled, but Evelyn could hear the anger underneath. "Mia is thriving. She's happy. She's healthy. She's loved. That matters more than what school she attends." "Does it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're letting your pride get in the way of what's best for her." "Dad, please." Patricia tried to intervene, but Richard wasn't finished. "You're working construction, Lucas, living in this—" He gestured around the apartment with barely concealed distaste. "You gave up architecture, gave up everything Kelly believed you could be, and now you're dating again, bringing strangers around our granddaughter. That's enough." Evelyn's voice cut through the room like ice. Everyone turned to stare at her, and she felt that familiar boardroom energy rising, the part of her that commanded rooms and demolished opponents with words. "Mr. Patterson, you don't know me. You don't know anything about my relationship with Lucas or Mia, so maybe you should keep your judgments to yourself." Richard's eyes narrowed. "And who are you exactly? Some woman who's been around for what, a few weeks? You have no stake in this family." "I have enough stake to see that you're trying to manipulate Lucas by using Mia as leverage. Offering to pay for private school isn't generosity, it's a power play. You want control. I want what's best for my granddaughter." "Then trust her father to provide it. He's been doing it alone for 3 years while you were too busy grieving to even visit." The words landed like bombs. Patricia went pale. Richard's face flushed with anger. Lucas looked like he couldn't decide whether to stop Evelyn or let her continue. "How dare you?" Richard started. "How dare I what? Point out that you abandoned this child when she needed you most? That you're only showing up now to criticize how Lucas has managed without you?" Evelyn felt her temper fully unleashed now. Months of watching Lucas struggle alone channeling into fury. "You want to talk about what's best for Mia? What's best for Mia is having grandparents who support her father instead of undermining him. What's best for Mia is growing up knowing she's loved, not that she's a tool in some family power struggle." "Evelyn," Lucas said quietly, "it's okay. It's not okay. Nothing about this is okay." Mia had tears in her eyes, looking between all the adults with growing distress. Patricia noticed and immediately pulled her close. "Sweetheart, why don't you go to your room for a few minutes? The grown-ups need to talk." "But I want to stay with Daddy." "Go on, kiddo," Lucas said gently. "I'll be right here." When Mia had reluctantly left, closing her bedroom door behind her, the 4 adults stood in tense silence. "I apologize," Patricia said finally, her voice tight. "We shouldn't have come here with demands. This isn't what we wanted." "What did you want?" Lucas asked. "To see our granddaughter, to be part of her life again. We've been—" Patricia's voice cracked. "We've been terrible, staying away. Richard's right that we should have been here. But we were so angry at the world for taking Kelly, and seeing Mia it hurt too much." "You think it doesn't hurt me?" Lucas's own voice was raw now. "Every single day I see Kelly in her. Every single day I remember what we lost. But I show up anyway because that's what parents do." We know you've done an incredible job with her." Patricia looked at her husband. "Tell him, Richard." Richard seemed to deflate slightly, some of the bluster leaving him. "You have. Done a good job. I can see that." He paused. "I came here ready to fight because I was afraid. Afraid we'd lost too much time. Afraid Mia wouldn't remember us. Afraid you'd built a life without room for us in it." "There's room," Lucas said quietly. "There's always been room. I never wanted to keep you away. But I won't let you make Mia feel like she's not enough, or like I'm not enough. We're doing fine. We're going to be better than fine." "Because of her?" Richard nodded toward Evelyn. "Partly. But mostly because I finally stopped being afraid to build something again." Lucas took Evelyn's hand. "Evelyn's helping me restart my architecture practice. I'm cutting back construction hours. In a few months, maybe less, I'll be back to doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So you're concerned about me working construction forever? It's not necessary." Patricia's expression softened. "Kelly would be so proud of you, for keeping going, for finding someone, for being the father Mia deserves." The simple words seemed to undo something in Lucas. His eyes went bright with tears he refused to let fall. "I loved her. I still love her. But I'm also—" "Alive," Patricia finished. "You're allowed to be alive, Lucas. We've all been so busy grieving that we forgot how to live. But Kelly wouldn't have wanted that. She'd want you to be happy." "She'd like Evelyn," Lucas said, glancing at her. "Kelly always said I needed someone who wouldn't let me wallow in self-pity, someone who'd kick my ass when I needed it." Despite the tension, Patricia smiled slightly. "That does sound like Kelly's philosophy." Richard cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the emotional turn. "About the school situation. I still think Mia deserves the best education available. But perhaps we could explore options together. Look at what's available. Let Mia have input. Make it a family decision instead of a mandate." "I can live with that," Lucas said. They talked for another hour. carefully navigating around the painful topics, finding common ground where they could. Patricia asked if they could have Mia for a weekend soon, take her to museums and the planetarium. Lucas agreed, though Evelyn could see the fear in his eyes at letting her go. Richard mentioned wanting to help financially without trampling Lucas's pride, suggesting perhaps college fund contributions instead of direct support. When they finally left, promising to call soon to arrange that weekend visit, Lucas closed the door and leaned against it, exhausted. "Well," he said, "that was fun?" "I'm sorry," Evelyn said immediately. "I shouldn't have jumped in like that. It wasn't my place." "Are you kidding? You were amazing. A little terrifying, but amazing." He pulled her close. "Thank you for having my back, for not letting them make me feel small." "You're not small. You're—" She searched for the right words. "You're the best father I've ever seen. Don't let anyone make you forget that." Mia emerged from her room tentatively. "Is everyone done being mad?" "Everyone's done being mad," Lucas confirmed, scooping her up even though she was really too big for it. "Your grandparents love you very much. They're just figuring out how to show it." "Okay, can we have dinner now? I'm starving and all that grown-up stuff took forever." So they made dinner, grilled cheese again because it was Mia's comfort food, and pretended the afternoon's drama had never happened. But later, after Mia was asleep, Lucas and Evelyn lay in his bed talking in quiet voices. "I need to do better," Lucas said. "Need to make more money, provide more stability, so people like Richard can't question whether I'm enough." "You are enough." "I want to be more than enough. I want to be—" He stopped. "I want to give Mia everything. The best schools, opportunities, experiences, not because Richard said so, but because she deserves it. Then we'll make that happen, together." "Is that what we're doing? Building something together?" Evelyn thought about her penthouse, sitting empty most nights now, about how her assistant had stopped asking where she was going after work, about how she'd declined 3 social invitations this week because they conflicted with Mia's bedtime routine. "Yeah," she said. "I think that's exactly what we're doing. Scary. Terrifying. But good? But good." They fell asleep tangled together, and Evelyn dreamed of houses with big windows and small girls reaching for the stars. When she woke, Lucas was already up, coffee brewing in the kitchen, Mia's laugh drifting from her bedroom. Morning sounds, family sounds, the kind of thing she'd never thought she wanted but now couldn't imagine living without. Her phone buzzed with emails, work demanding her attention, her real life trying to pull her back. She silenced it and went to find Lucas in the kitchen, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Morning," she murmured against his shoulder. "Morning, coffee's almost ready." "I love you." The words were out before she could stop them. Lucas went very still. "Say that again." "I love you. I didn't mean to. It just came out. We don't have to talk about it if you're not ready." He turned in her arms, his expression unreadable. "I'm terrified of this. Of us. Of how fast this is happening. I know. But I love you too. Probably have since you waited an hour for me in that cafe and smiled when I finally showed up." He kissed her softly. "So now what? Now we keep showing up, keep being honest, keep building this thing we're building. That simple? That's simple." From the other room, Mia called out, "Are you guys being mushy again? Because I'm trying to eat breakfast and I don't need to hear all the kissing sounds." They broke apart, laughing. Lucas went to deal with his daughter while Evelyn poured coffee into mismatched mugs, and it was all so ordinary and perfect that she had to blink back unexpected tears. She'd spent 42 years building a fortune and an empire. But this cramped apartment and terrible coffee and a 7-year-old who complained about kissing sounds, this was the 3 months later Evelyn stood in the lobby of a building she'd purchased without quite meaning to. It had started as research, looking into commercial real estate options for Lucas's expanding architecture practice. Somehow it had ended with her signing papers on a 3-story brick structure in a transitional neighborhood, the kind of place where coffee shops were starting to replace pawn shops, where young families were buying fixer-uppers. "You're insane," Lucas had said when she told him. "This is insane." Probably. But the bottom 2 floors are perfect for office space. We can lease out the top floor as residential to cover costs. It's a good investment. It's a huge commitment. I know. He'd studied her face for a long moment. You're really all in on this, aren't you? I'm really all in. Now, watching contractors measure for renovations, Evelyn felt that familiar thrill she'd lost somewhere in the past decade. The excitement of building something from nothing, of seeing potential where others saw only problems. Lucas was upstairs with the structural engineer, arguing passionately about load-bearing walls and natural light. His voice drifted down, animated in a way she'd rarely heard during those first weeks when he'd been just surviving. Her phone buzzed. Jessica, her assistant, with the daily crisis report. A client threatening to pull their portfolio. A board member questioning her recent absences. The usual fires demanding her attention. Evelyn typed back quick instructions and pocketed her phone. She'd deal with it later. Right now, she was exactly where she needed to be. Evelyn, Mia's voice echoed through the empty space. She came racing down the stairs, her backpack bouncing, Patricia following more sedately behind. Grandma brought me. Can I see where Daddy's office is going to be? The transition with Lucas's in-laws had been smoother than anyone expected. Regular weekend visits had become standing dinner invitations. Patricia had even started picking Mia up from school once a week, giving Lucas extra time to work. Richard still made the occasional comment about private schools and proper opportunities, but they'd reached a détente. Grandparents who wanted to help, not control. It's going to be on the second floor, Evelyn said, crouching down to Mia's level. Want to go see? They climbed the stairs together, Mia's hand in hers, chattering about her day at school. Patricia trailed behind, and when they reached the second-floor landing, she touched Evelyn's arm gently. Thank you, Patricia said quietly, for making him happy, for giving him this chance. I know we got off to a rough start, but you're good for them. Both of them. The words meant more than Patricia probably realized. Evelyn had spent weeks worrying that she was intruding, that Kelly's memory made her an unwelcome replacement. But Patricia's acceptance felt like permission to stop apologizing for existing. They're good for me too, Evelyn said honestly. They found Lucas in what would become his main office, standing at a window that overlooked the street, sketching something on his tablet. He looked up when they entered, his face transforming when he saw Mia. Hey kiddo, Grandma brought you early. School got out early because of teacher conferences. Can I pick which room is yours? Sure. But fair warning, I'm probably taking the one with the best light. That's the big one in the corner. Exactly. Mia raced off to explore, Patricia following to make sure she didn't hurt herself in the construction zone. Lucas crossed to Evelyn, pulling her close. This is really happening, he said against her hair. I have 3 clients now. 3 actual paying clients who want custom architectural work. Mrs. Patterson referred me to 2 of her friends. I'm going to need to hire help soon. That's good. It's terrifying. What if I can't deliver? What if I'm not as good as I used to be? Then you'll figure it out. That's what we do. She pulled back to look at him. You're allowed to be scared and still do the thing, you know. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You're just now noticing. He kissed her, soft and sweet, and Evelyn felt that same certainty she'd felt in Rosie's cafe months ago, that choosing to wait, choosing to stay, choosing this complicated, messy life had been exactly right. I need to tell you something, Lucas said when they broke apart. His expression was serious enough to make Evelyn's stomach clench. Okay. I've been thinking about the living situation, about how you're basically living at my place but still paying for that penthouse downtown. It doesn't make sense, financially or otherwise. Lucas, let me finish. I'm not asking you to move in because I'm trying to save money or because it's practical. I'm asking because I want you there, permanently. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want Mia to stop asking when you're coming back because you're just there. He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. I want us to be a family. Officially. Evelyn's throat went tight. Are you asking me to move in, or are you asking me something else? I don't have a ring. I don't have some elaborate proposal planned. I just have this. He gestured around the empty office space, the building they were creating together. A life I'm building with you, and I want to make it official. Legal, whatever that looks like. Lucas Reed, are you proposing to me in a construction zone? Is that completely inappropriate? God, I could have done this somewhere nicer, made it romantic. It's perfect. And it was. No fancy restaurant, no staged moment, just honest truth in a space they were building together. Yes. Whatever you're asking, yes. His smile could have lit the entire building. He pulled her close, lifting her off her feet, spinning her once before setting her down gently. Really? Really, although we probably shouldn't tell Mia yet. She'll want to plan a wedding immediately, and neither of us are ready for that level of chaos. Fair point. He kissed her again, deeper this time, only breaking apart when they heard Mia's footsteps thundering back toward them. I picked your office, the big corner one, and Grandma says we can get pizza for dinner, and Mia stopped, looking between them suspiciously. Were you guys kissing again? You have that look. What look? Lucas asked innocently. The mushy look, the one where you both get all smiley and weird. She wrinkled her nose. It's gross, but also kind of nice. Does this mean Evelyn's going to live with us for real? Lucas and Evelyn exchanged glances, so much for waiting to tell her. Would you want that? Evelyn asked carefully. If I moved in with you and your dad? Mia considered this with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice. Would you still have to go to work a lot? Sometimes, but I'd be home for dinner most nights, and weekends. Would you help with my homework? If you wanted me to. Would you tell Daddy when he's being stubborn about stupid stuff? Absolutely. Then yes. You should definitely move in. Mia paused. Are you going to get married? Because Sarah at school says when grown-ups live together, they're supposed to get married. Eventually, Lucas said. If that's okay with you. Will I get to be in the wedding? You'll be the most important person in the wedding. Okay, good, because I have ideas about dresses, lots of ideas. Can we get pizza now? Patricia appeared in the doorway, clearly having heard at least part of the conversation. Her smile was knowing. Pizza sounds perfect. Lucas, why don't you and Evelyn finish up here? Mia and I can go pick it up. You don't have to. We want to. Take your time. When they were alone again, Lucas pulled Evelyn back into his arms. So that just happened. That just happened. Are you freaking out? Because I'm kind of freaking out. I'm not freaking out. Evelyn tried to find the right words. I'm ready. For the first time in my life, I'm actually ready for something that isn't work or success or proving myself. I'm ready for this. Even though it means dealing with Mia's wedding ideas, she once spent 3 hours explaining her vision for a space-themed birthday party. A wedding is going to be exponentially more complicated. Even then, they stood at the window together, watching the street below as evening settled over the city. Construction workers were packing up for the day. A couple walked past pushing a stroller. Ordinary life happening all around them, and for once, Evelyn felt like she was part of it instead of observing from a distance. I should probably sell the penthouse, she said. It's ridiculous to keep it when I'm never there. You love that place. I love the idea of that place. The reality is it's a very expensive monument to loneliness. She turned to face him. I want to find something we choose together. Nothing too big, nothing too flashy. Just a home. For the three of us. With room for a telescope? Obviously with room for a telescope. And a proper office where you can work without sitting on my couch? That would be nice. And maybe a yard. So Mia can run around without breaking things? Are we really doing this? Planning a future like normal people? Lucas laughed. I don't think we'll ever be normal people. But yeah, I think we're really doing this. They spent the next hour walking through the building, making plans for the renovations, arguing good-naturedly about paint colors and furniture placement. It was domestic and mundane and absolutely perfect. When they finally left to meet Mia and Patricia for pizza, Lucas pulled the door shut behind them and took Evelyn's hand. Thank you, he said as they walked toward the car. For what? For waiting. That first night at Rosie's. You could have left after 10 minutes, probably should have, but you waited. And that changed everything. Evelyn thought about that night, how close she'd come to leaving, how many times she'd almost given up. If she'd left even 5 minutes earlier, none of this would exist. She'd still be alone in her penthouse, successful and miserable, wondering why nothing felt like enough. I'm glad I waited, she said simply. The next few months passed in a blur of renovations and house hunting and learning to merge two very different lives into something coherent. Evelyn officially sold her penthouse, making the local real estate news for the speed and profit of the sale. She kept her company, but stepped back from day-to-day operations, promoting her CFO to president and moving herself into a consulting role. Her board was skeptical until they saw the numbers. Her investments were performing better than ever, possibly because she was finally making decisions based on genuine passion instead of just projected returns. Lucas's architecture practice was growing faster than either of them anticipated. The building renovations were complete by May, and he hired 2 junior architects to help with the workload. The top-floor residential unit rented immediately to a young couple who loved the neighborhood's mix of old and new. Everything was falling into place with a rightness that would have felt suspicious if Evelyn let herself overthink it. They found a house in June, a craftsman in need of work, but with good bones and a yard where Mia could play. Lucas drew up renovation plans immediately, his vision transforming the dated interior into something open and light-filled. They moved in together on a sweltering Saturday in July, Mia directing traffic while they hauled boxes up the front steps.
"That one goes in my room." "No, not that one, the other one. Daddy, tell Evelyn my room is upstairs, not down here." "Your room is upstairs," Lucas confirmed, carrying a box marked Spacebooks past them. "See, I told you." Mia turned back to Evelyn with exaggerated patience. "My room is the one with the big window that faces east so I can see the sunrise. Daddy designed it special for me."
"My mistake. I'll take this up right away." By evening, they were surrounded by boxes in various states of unpacking, eating Chinese takeout on the floor because they hadn't found the plates yet. Mia had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from the excitement, her new telescope already set up by her bedroom window upstairs. "I can't believe we pulled this off," Lucas said, leaning back against the wall. "Actual homeowners. People who have to worry about mortgages and property taxes and whether the roof is going to leak." "You worried about the roof?" "Little bit. But I'm more worried about messing this up, about us getting comfortable and forgetting to appreciate what we have." Evelyn moved closer, fitting herself against his side. "Then we'll remind each other. That's what partners do." "Partners?" He smiled. "I like the sound of that."
"Business and personal?" "Both. All of it. Everything." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to Mia snore softly from the couch, to the sounds of their new neighborhood drifting through the open windows. Someone was having a barbecue nearby. Kids were playing in a yard down the street. Normal summer evening sounds in a normal neighborhood. Nothing like the sterile silence of Evelyn's old penthouse or the crowded noise of Lucas's apartment building. "I need to tell you something," Evelyn said eventually. "That sounds ominous." "It's not, or maybe it is. I don't know." She took a breath. "I've been thinking about my company, about what I actually want to do with it."
"Okay. And I think I want to start something new, a different kind of investment fund, one that focuses on people like you, talented people who've been knocked down by circumstances, who need capital and support to get back to doing what they're meant to do. Small business owners, artists, single parents trying to rebuild, people the traditional finance world ignores." Lucas was quiet for a moment. "That's a big pivot from what you've been doing." "I know. My board is going to hate it. The returns won't be as flashy, but I keep thinking about how much potential is wasted because people don't have access to resources. You were framing houses when you should have been designing them. How many other people are out there doing the same thing, settling for survival when they could be thriving? It's a beautiful idea. Also possibly financial suicide. Maybe. But I have enough money that I can afford to take the risk, and I think—" She paused, trying to articulate what had been building in her chest for months. "I think this is what I'm supposed to do. Not just move money around to make more money, actually help people build things that matter." "You're going to change the world, Evelyn Hart." "I'm going to try. With your help?" "Always." They sealed it with a kiss, and Evelyn felt that familiar rightness settle over her. This was the life she'd been searching for without knowing it. Not perfection, but purpose. Not isolation, but belonging. The wedding happened in September, small and intimate in the backyard of their new house. Mia wore a dress covered in embroidered stars and served as both flower girl and ring bearer, taking her duties so seriously that she practiced walking up the aisle for 3 days straight. Patricia and Richard hosted the rehearsal dinner, and Richard's toast was surprisingly emotional,
talking about second chances and how proud Kelly would be of the life Lucas had built. Evelyn's parents flew in from Arizona, bemused by their daughter's sudden domesticity, but clearly charmed by Mia, who interrogated them extensively about their own careers and whether they'd ever seen the Grand Canyon from space.
Jessica was there with her family, along with Evelyn's CFO and a handful of colleagues who'd become genuine friends during the transition. Lucas's construction crew showed up in suits, looking uncomfortable but happy for their former coworker. The ceremony itself was brief, a judge friend of Patricia's officiating, simple vows that both Lucas and Evelyn had written themselves. When Lucas promised to always be honest, to always show up, to choose her every single day, Evelyn felt tears on her face. When she promised to love both him and Mia, to build a life worth living instead of just surviving, Lucas's voice cracked on his "I do." Mia cheered so loudly when they kissed that several people laughed, and the reception that followed was exactly what they'd wanted: casual, warm, full of people who actually cared instead of networking contacts and obligatory invitations. Late in the evening, after most guests had left and Mia had fallen asleep on Patricia's lap, Evelyn found herself standing at the edge of the yard with Lucas, watching fireflies drift through the darkness. "So," Lucas said, his arm around her waist, "Mrs. Reed, how does it feel?" "Strange. Good. Terrifying." She leaned into him. "Everything I didn't know I wanted. No regrets about the fancy society wedding, the magazine coverage and designer dress? Not even a little bit. Good. Because I'm pretty sure Mia would never forgive us if we'd done anything that didn't involve her wearing a dress covered in stars." They laughed together, and Evelyn marveled at how natural it felt. This life, this love, this family they'd built from nothing more than patience and honesty and showing up when it mattered. She thought about Christmas Eve, about sitting alone in that cafe, about the decision to stay when every instinct told her to leave. "Thank you for crashing through that door covered in snow," she said softly. "Thank you for not running away when you saw what a disaster I was." "You weren't a disaster. You were real." "Same thing sometimes." "Maybe. But I needed real. I'd had enough of everything else." They stood together in the darkness, listening to the sounds of their wedding reception winding down, and Evelyn understood something she'd never quite grasped before. Success wasn't about how much you accumulated or achieved. It was about who you became in the process of building a life. And standing here, in a modest backyard in a house that needed work, married to a man who'd taught her that showing up mattered more than showing off, raising a daughter who dreamed of stars, this was the most successful she'd ever been. The next morning, Mia woke them at dawn, insisting they all watch the sunrise from her bedroom window. They stumbled upstairs still half asleep, Lucas carrying coffee that none of them really wanted, and crowded around the telescope she'd positioned perfectly. "Look," Mia whispered, her voice full of wonder as golden light spilled across the horizon. "It's starting." And it was. Not just the day, but everything. Their life together, this family they'd chosen, the future spreading out before them with all its possibilities and uncertainties. Evelyn wrapped one arm around Lucas and the other around Mia and watched the sun rise over their neighborhood, over their new beginning, over the life they'd built by choosing courage over comfort. Lucas squeezed her hand 3 times, their private code for "I love you," developed during boring meetings and quiet evenings when words felt insufficient. She squeezed back 3 times and felt Mia squirm between them, complaining that they were squishing her but not actually trying to move away. "Can we have pancakes?" Mia asked when the sun was fully up. "The lumpy kind Daddy makes?" "Rustic," Lucas corrected automatically. "Lumpy," Mia insisted. "Lumpy pancakes sound perfect," Evelyn said. They went downstairs together, Mia racing ahead to start pulling out ingredients, Lucas and Evelyn following more slowly, their hands intertwined. In the kitchen, Mia had already made a mess with the flour, and Lucas was laughing as he tried to clean it up, and Evelyn was pouring juice into mismatched glasses, and it was chaotic and imperfect, and absolutely exactly what home was supposed to feel like. She thought about calling her office, checking on the new investment fund she was launching, reviewing the applications from people who needed a chance the way Lucas had needed one. But all of that could wait. Right now, there was only this: her family, her home, her life that had started with waiting in a cafe on Christmas Eve and had somehow become more than she'd ever dreamed possible. "Evelyn?" Mia called from the table where she'd climbed up to sit. "When I grow up and become a space veterinarian, will you invest in my business?" "Absolutely. I'll be your first investor." "Good, because I'm going to need a lot of money to build a spaceship big enough for animals." "That seems reasonable." "Mia, eat your pancakes," Lucas said, sliding a plate in front of her. "They're lumpy. They're rustic." "Same thing." Evelyn sat down at the table with them, and they ate breakfast together while Mia chattered about her plans for space-based veterinary medicine, and Lucas interjected with practical concerns about zero gravity, and animal care. Ordinary conversation. Ordinary morning. The kind of thing that happened in houses all over the world every single day. But this was theirs, built from patience and risk, and the radical decision to keep showing up even when it was terrifying. And as Evelyn looked at her family, at the man who'd taught her that being enough was actually everything, and the girl who believed the universe was hers to explore, she understood that wealth had nothing to do with bank accounts or portfolios. It was this table, this laughter, this home they'd created together. This was what she'd been waiting for all along, sitting in that cafe on Christmas Eve, choosing patience over pride. This was what it meant to finally, truly, have everything that mattered.